and members of the government of Rwanda, Your Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, former Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and his dear wife, former First Lady, Mrs. Desalegn, Your Excellency Janet Kagame, the First Lady of the Republic of Rwanda. Please give it up to her. Your Excellency Margaret Kenyatta, First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, representatives of the African heads of state and government, including representative of President Macron, honorable ministers, especially elegantly dressed today for the occasion, the Honorable Minister of Gender for Rwanda, ministers of gender from across Africa, honorable ministers, ambassadors, heads of diplomatic missions and international organizations, executive directors of the African Development Bank, representatives and staff of multilateral development banks, heads of commercial banks and financial institutions, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the Global Gender Summit. I wish to welcome all participants, ministers and leaders from around the world to this event organized by the African Development Bank, together with all sister multilateral development banks and hosted by the government of Rwanda. This is the first time that the Global Gender Summit is being held in Africa. I wish to thank you, Your Excellency President Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda, for hosting us for this event. We are thankful to the government and the people of Rwanda for your well-known hospitality. I'd like to especially appreciate your dear wife, Her Excellency Janet Kagame, for her great work and for all your efforts in driving issues of empowerment of women. Mr. President, you are known as a highly successful president, but you have in her a great partner, and I believe that's why you are always succeeding. I'd like to welcome Her Excellency President Sahle Work Zewde of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, my dear sister, Africa's only female president. For being with us, it's great to welcome Her Excellency Joyce Banda, former President of the Republic of Malawi, for being here with us. You are both great examples and role models for all women in Africa. Africa needs more female presidents. I'd like to welcome the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Her Excellency Margaret Kenyatta. Thank you, Your Excellency, for all you do to promote the empowerment of women. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I know it's a global gender summit, but I believe the issues that we will discuss are about women. I get gender issues, I get them. I know the numbers on gender disparities. The challenges are not just about gender. They are about underrepresentation and lack of empowerment of women, period. Let's focus on women. Let's focus on solutions for the gender disparities we see that affect women. I'm very proud to say I've always been a champion for women and women issues. Women are winners. Women are life givers. Every single person in the world was born by a woman, carried in the womb for 9 months, breastfed by a woman, carried on the back for your comfortable sleep as a child by a woman, clothed by a woman, and fed by a woman. Indeed, you could do nothing without your mother, who gave you life. It is a great irony then that the same women trusted to give us life are not trusted to manage the environment where we grow up. The bearer of life is now denied the basics of life. They are denied access to land, they cannot inherit spouse's property, they lack equal access to education or financial services. A world that denies women the opportunities to excel is not a smart world. The basic elementary thing we teach a kid is 1 + 1 = 2. Clearly, additions give higher values, and subtraction diminishes value. So 2 minus 1 equals 1. One will therefore assume that the world will be wise enough to know that things will be better with addition, not with subtraction. For way too long, women have suffered from the subtraction side, subtracted from education, subtracted from access to land and legal rights over property, subtracted from access to finance, subtracted from leadership positions in boardrooms, subtracted from political processes. No wonder the world is shortchanged. To change the world, we should go back to elementary school arithmetic and add 1 to 1 to make 2. Women don't make wars. It's the egos of men that lead to wars. But women and their children bear the brunt of wars and conflicts. A world led by women will never have wars. Life bearers will never become life takers. Rwanda's women are a great example. A small nation decimated by war and genocide, which left its population with largely women. To rebuild Rwanda had to rely on women, and Rwanda's women are simply remarkable. They helped to rebuild this nation from the painful ashes of genocide and wars. Rwanda's women are strong, entrepreneurial, and determined. President Paul Kagame, my dear friend, recognized the power of women to build, to give life. Today, Rwanda has 50% of all ministerial positions filled by women, just like in Ethiopia. It has 61% of its parliamentarians being women, the highest in the world. 4 of the 7 Supreme Court justices are women. Today, present with us is President of Ethiopia, the first in her country's history, and the only female president of the country, as I said. What an incredible achievement. As we gather today for the Global Gender Summit, we must focus on how to fast-track economic, social, and political opportunities for women and girls. A smarter world must invest in women and girls. Let's be smart. Let's be wise. Women are the best investments any society can make. When they earn, they spend 90% of their income on their households, including their husbands. Our husbands should be grateful for that. Women pay back on their loans an overwhelming 90%. Smart banks will lend to women. Yet there exists globally close to $1.5 trillion financing gap for women-led small and medium-sized enterprises. In Africa, 70% of women are excluded financially. The continent has $42 billion annual financing gap between men and women. And women, who are majority of the farmers on the continent, face a financing gap of close to $16 billion. That's why the African Development Bank has launched the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, AFAWA, to mobilize $3 billion of new lending by banks and financial institutions for women in Africa, the largest such effort in Africa's history. I would like to thank President Macron for his amazing support for AFAWA during the G7 summit. I would also like to thank Moussa Faki, His Excellency Moussa Faki, and all African heads of state for all their helps to mobilize $251 million for the initiative. The African Development Bank believes in women. Women are bankable. Smart nations will invest in women. A study by McKinsey shows that equal and full participation of women can add an additional $28 trillion to global wealth by 2025, an increase of 26% in global annual GDP. So, in short, the world is poorer because we exclude women or treat them unfairly in terms of labor market participation and unequal wages and unequal access or exclusion from markets and financial resources. As multilateral development banks, we owe it to the world not only to shine the light on the challenges of women, we must develop and launch transformative programs to tackle them decisively. We must drive policy dialogue to tackle legal, regulatory, and institutional environments that constrain opportunities for women. We must ensure gender equality in all of our projects. We must fight against gender-based violence, and we must expand voice for women to participate more actively in communities as leaders in project design, implementation, and monitoring. We must change our procurement systems to open up opportunities for affirmative procurement for women and for the youth. And we must end all forms of child marriage. For the men, hear me clearly. Leave our girls alone. Marry your own age mates. We cannot sacrifice the future of our girls. Let our girls be. Let our girls stay in school. Let our girls strive. Let our girls excel. They are our best assets. And as we deliberate over the next 2 days, let's remember 1 + 1 = 2. Let's make sure we end gender-based disparities and inequalities. No bird flies with one wing. When we fully empower women, then our economies will fly with 2 wings. Our schools will fly with 2 wings. Our businesses will fly with 2 wings. Our communities will fly with 2 wings. And then women, the life bearers, will have much better lives to live themselves. And when they do, all lives will be better. Our world will finally fly with 2 wings, rising to the highest global wealth we possibly can achieve. Then our world will be a much, much better place. Let's support women to thrive. Let's make our world a better place for all. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akiwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group. Always a very hard act to follow. I'll try to raise my game. So women are the best investment any society can make. On that note, I'm delighted to welcome our host, His Excellency, President Paul Kagame, for his opening statement.
Excellency, Sahle-Work Zewde, President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Dr. Adesina Akiwumi, President of the African Development Bank, Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellencies, former heads of state and the government, First Ladies here present, heads of delegation representing their heads of state from Chad, Gabon, Mali, Morocco, Senegal, and Uganda, honorable ministers of gender from throughout Africa, distinguished delegations, leaders, and ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to welcome you once again on behalf of the government and the people of Rwanda. Rwanda is greatly honored to serve as host of the first Global Gender Summit to take place in Africa. I commend Dr. Adesina and the African Development Bank for spearheading this conference, working with the other multilateral development banks who are part of this effort. I also wish to congratulate the bank for important work on closing the multi-billion-dollar credit gap for women-led enterprises in Africa. The launch of the innovative Alpha risk-sharing facility will be a highlight of this meeting's outcomes. The fight for gender equality is really common sense. Women are our mothers, sisters, and wives and daughters, a big part of which has been said by Dr. Dessina. Whatever women gain, everybody gains and nobody loses. Indeed, let's remember that this is a gender summit. That means all of us are concerned, not just half of us. Being a man in a position of leadership at any level means never having to think about your gender. But being a woman leader means always having to think about how gender impacts your work. I think it is past time for men to become much more conscious of gender so that women can afford to enjoy the same freedom to just get on with the business that men take for granted. As was mentioned today, marks the start of the annual 16 Days of Activism campaign. Let's make them count. This summit is now open. Once again, you are most welcome, and I wish you a productive meeting, and I thank you for your kind attention.
As you have noticed, I'm vertically challenged, so let me adjust the microphones. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that inspiring speech and call for action. I don't know if you heard it, but there's heavy downpour, and where I come from, when it rains, it only brings good luck. So it means that the proceedings ahead will be highly successful. At this point, I would like to hand over for the rest of the proceedings to our Vice President, Jennifer Blanque, who will moderate the high-level panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nafi. Okay, so the microphone is working. I am absolutely delighted to be here today with such an incredible panel to kick off this discussion. I think we all see that we have some of the biggest advocates, if not the biggest advocates, in Africa for women's equality and really, talking about but also doing what needs to be done in order to provide women with equal access on so many different levels, and from government, from multilaterals, and also from business. And I think the goal here is just to get a few of their thoughts to kick off discussions that will take 3 days, that will be not just technical, but technical as well as bringing in the voice of business and others to really roll up our sleeves and make a real difference and walk out of here in the next 3 days knowing that we are going to move even faster and, as President Adesina says, accelerate the move towards gender equality. So I would like to start with you, Your Excellency, President Kagame, if that would be okay. We've all seen the incredible things that are happening here, and we just heard from you how important you also see gender equality as a huge driver for development. And so, obviously 50% of the cabinet are women, 50% of court judges, Supreme Court judges are women, more than 60% of parliament in Rwanda are made up of women. That's incredible. So given how much you've achieved, what are your plans for the next stage, ensuring sustainable gender equality in your country and really driving forward with that effort?
Well, once again, let me mention how happy we are. I am to have the President of Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, President of the African Development Bank, Chair of the African Union Commission, different partners here present, Excellencies. We got it from the beginning that there is a lot of work to do in terms of narrowing the gender gaps that exist. So from the outset, indeed, we made investments in terms of making sure that women are a central part of our population and the growth of the country in every regard and development of the country. So we have achieved a few things. Good progress has been made, whether it is women and their health, in education, in business, entrepreneurship, but there is still a lot of work to do. As we know, we are not yet where we need to be. And in fact, when you look at the studies that have been done by, for example, the World Economic Forum, and they show that gender parity has not been achieved by any country in our world. So we still have to do more. Much as in some aspects we are ahead, we are on ahead where many people are not doing so well. So we need to, again, go back to business and work together to make sure that. But the other thing that is very important for us in terms of the progress we have made and in which women have been very active, it's about change of mindset, to understand and look at things differently in a way that matters. So the change of mindset has elevated women to the level where they need to be, and they are there by their own efforts, as well as the country altogether making this effort together, men and women, and that's the difference that there has been. So what we intend to do, therefore, is to do more of what we have been doing and making sure that narrowing this gender gap is everybody's responsibility. It's not just women's responsibility, it is theirs as well, but it is even men's responsibility. And we have to make sure that this mindset, this new type of thinking is well entrenched, and just keep doing more of what we know has worked for us, whether it is women. Again, I'll give you an example. In our history here, even going by the colonial laws and so on, women were not supposed to inherit anything from their families. In other words, they are not supposed to own assets, but we have changed that. In fact, women have participated in changing that, even through changing laws, and as we have been told, they dominate the parliament. So sometimes when issues have come up and they are complaining about this, we tell them, go and change it. Through you have the power in the parliament where laws are made, so go ahead and do it. and all we do is to support them and support each other and make sure that there is continued change. So good progress, more work to do, and we are aware that we have to work together to continue making the change that we want to see happen.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And I'm not sure if this is working. Yes, now it's working, I think. Thank you very much for that. And it's true, it's amazing what's happening here, and truly that will change the mindsets. And then it does provide such an important example for other countries to follow. So talking about other countries, Your Excellency, Madam President, I'm very happy to say, if I could turn to you now and talk to you a bit about the Ethiopian experience and drawing on your career. We see a lot is being done at the cabinet and other areas to try to make a difference at the political level in Ethiopia. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there, and also what are the plans going forward? What has your experience been as the first female president coming into Ethiopia and seeing the changes that are taking place?
Thank you very much. Let me start by expressing the great pleasure that I have to be here today with you in Kigali, the heart of Africa. This summit could not be held somewhere else than Kigali, the Gender Summit. Thank you, President Kagame, for the invitation, and President Adesina. Let me start by just sharing with you a conversation I had with the President of the African Development Bank when I got the invitation, and there were conflicting events. So I called and said, what do you think about it? And he gave me another question, saying, okay, very good. Who else do you want me to invite as a president in Africa? It shows how rare we are. So, I mean, I didn't have to think twice. That's where we have to be if we can have our humble contribution to this conversation. So I'm really happy to be here. Yes, 2018 has been a very momentous year in Ethiopia. We have also 50% of our cabinet who are women, and other women in high positions, and of course including mine. This has been the result of overall transformation that my country is going through since a year and a half, and which has brought women to the fore. It has helped to see a new way of having leaders, viewing new leaders as well. In the cabinet, we have also been able to see for the first time female ministers overseeing ministries such as defense, national security, and so on. So I think we can say it was a very good momentum for Ethiopian women and for African women. Having said that, I want to immediately jump to the fact that the work has just started, but not finished. There is this perception and in fact views that are expressed that since you have all these positions, then what else do you want? What has happened in Ethiopia is the miracle of what a political will could lead you to. But the work has just started. I mean, if it was appointing female representatives to higher positions, then I think we could have done it long ago. But there is this gap that we have to fill. We have to have women filling, those middle-level leadership positions as well, and women grow along the ladder, competing with other male. So we need to have educated, skilled women that could replace those who have been pioneers in that regard. So the challenge is that we really need to work towards that and explain, change the mindset, as has been said, to allow women to come in. The other positive thing, I think, of having women is that, well, we can show that we can deliver, but we can also deliver differently. There is no template to follow where we are, even in this position, be told, oh, no, you know, this is how presidents act and this is how things are done. I said, okay, if I can get where I want to get in a different way, so why don't I try it? This is the beauty of having different ways of looking at things and moving forward. So in Ethiopia, there is a door of opportunity that has been opened. It's the onus is on us to maintain that door open because, mind you, it can be closed. We can't regress. So we have to sustain this great progress that have been registered in Ethiopia in only a year and a half. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And it is incredibly inspiring. And again, yes, we've just gotten started, but what a great start. So now I would like to turn to you, Your Excellency, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, because we know what a priority this is for the African Union, and particularly within your Agenda 2063. And there's a lot of discussion, I think, among you and your colleagues about how violence and discrimination against women really does hold the continent back, and that it is a very important factor to address in driving much more quickly ahead with Agenda 2063, the SDGs, and so on and so forth. So what I would love to hear from you is a little bit more about how you're working with African leaders to really make a difference in this area, and what are some of your plans for encouraging gender equality in Africa.
Merci. Permettez-moi d'abord de remercier le président Kagame et le président Adesina de nous avoir associés à cet important sommet sur le genre. Je suis heureux également d'être parmi des leaders africains, celui du Rwanda et la présidente de l'Éthiopie, pays dans lesquels il y a une égalité pure et parfaite entre les membres du gouvernement. Vous allez me dire que l'Union africaine a 55 membres. Il n'y a que 2 dans lesquels cette parité a été atteinte. C'est très peu. Alors que dans l'agenda 2063, et bien avant, même dans l'acte constitutif de l'Union africaine, l'égalité des genres est inscrite en lettres d'or. Donc, cette discrimination, elle est politique, elle est économique, elle est sociale. Elle est politiquement incorrecte, économiquement insensée et socialement injustifiable. Parce que la moitié, ce moitié du ciel, qui est constitué par les femmes, je dirais même un peu plus de la moitié. Parce que statistiquement parlant, les femmes sont plus nombreuses que les hommes dans notre continent. Ne pas tenir suffisamment compte de ce potentiel est un véritable gâchis. Qu'est-ce que nous faisons avec nos États membres? L'agenda 2063, qui est notre bréviaire, dans son objectif 6, dit expressément que nous devrions compter sur les potentialités humaines et notamment sur les femmes en Afrique pour pouvoir réaliser cet agenda. J'ai beaucoup aimé l'arithmétique faite par le président Adesina. L'arithmétique, surtout l'addition faite par un banquier, est quelque chose de très, très important. Parce que généralement, ils aiment la soustraction. Surtout quand il s'agit d'étudier les dossiers bancables présentés par les femmes. Elles n'ont pas suffisamment de garanties. Qu'est-ce qui nous assure qu'elles vont payer? C'est bien que cela soit dit et par la voie la plus importante sur le plan bancaire. Je crois que c'est un très bon signe. Ce que nous disons à nos chefs d'État, et je suis heureux de constater que de plus en plus, la situation s'améliore et qu'il faut, sans gêne, et prendre son courage à 2 mains, parce qu'il s'agit de l'intérêt des États eux-mêmes, pour pouvoir franchir des pas significatifs dans le changement dans ce continent. J'ai souvenance quand j'avais 10 ans, je suis de l'Est du Tchad, où les gens ont l'habitude d'émigrer vers la Libye pour travailler. J'avais un oncle qui partait en Libye, je l'ai accompagné à la gare. Son épouse était avec lui, elle avait un enfant, un bébé. Et quand on lui faisait les adieux, elle est montée. Quand il est monté dans la voiture, elle est montée, c'est une voiture, un berlier ouvert, pour lui dire, écoute, fais attention à l'épargne. Ne sois pas dépensier. Ne t'en fais pas pour ici. Et le bétail, y compris ton cheval, tes vaches, tes chameaux sont dans de bonnes mains, je m'en occupe. Tes enfants, je m'en occupe. Fais tout pour épargner et ramener de l'argent. Imaginez, ça m'est resté. Le leadership montré par cette femme, la responsabilité qu'elle assume toute seule, alors que son mari partait pour 2-3 ans dans un pays étranger. C'est ça la résilience des femmes africaines. C'est ça la résilience des femmes africaines. Donc cette discrimination est injustifiable. La violence, ça c'est un autre problème, un autre phénomène. Violenter les femmes et les filles est tout simplement indécent. Rien ne le justifie. Aucune tradition, aucune religion, le bon sens ne peuvent justifier qu'on lève la main sur la femme. C'est injustifiable, absolument injustifiable. Alors, ce que j'ai dit aux uns, aux autres et surtout aux chefs d'État, profitez de cette potentialité et faites en sorte que cette éclosion puisse se permettre. Je suis certain que l'Afrique va changer et nous atteindrons l'Afrique que nous voulons. Je vous remercie.
Excellent. Merci beaucoup, Votre Excellence, et on espère qu'il y aura de plus en plus de chefs EFFE d'État dans le futur qui peuvent quand même suivre ces exemples. Très bien. Okay, Dr. Adeshina, Mr. President, boss, I'd love to turn to you now, and I know that you already talked a bit about this previously, but I mean the numbers really are astounding. If you look at the loss in wealth from holding women back, by some estimates, it's something like $160 trillion, which is about double global GDP. So it's clear that there are gains to be made here by allowing the two wings to function, so to speak. So can you tell us, you started a bit, but can you get a bit more into detail with us about what the bank is doing in this area and your sort of vision going forward of how we can ensure that Africa is really benefiting from all the talent that is at its disposal?
Thanks very much. First, let me thank the two presidents for what they said, and also for the chairperson of the African Union Commission. There's a lot of lessons there. First, for me, before I come to the question, is the importance of realizing that progress has been made. Right. But then, what they both said was the importance of humility, even as though that progress has been made. And also the power of mindset, as President Kagame said. We need to constantly change mindset. It's just exactly what the chair of the African Union Commission just said. So I think we should keep those things in mind so that we keep it in perspective. Now, for us at the African Development Bank, and we decided about almost 3 years ago that we have to stop talking about inframarginal things when it comes to women. We have to do things that are transformative when it comes to women. And so when we launched the Power, which is the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, which I said in my opening statement, which is to mobilize $3 billion for women businesses in Africa. That's a big thing for us. That's the biggest we've ever had on the continent. But let me tell you why I did that, why I pushed for that. Because that's most important on mindset. 1992, I took a flight from Lagos to Abidjan. It was in those days Air Afrique. And so I had a computer with me. It was this compact computer. It was one of those things you pick like this. It's like a suitcase. And that's all I had. And I entered the plane. And there are all these market women on the plane. And they had baskets on their head, they had clothes, they have everything. And just bear with me to land so you don't judge what I'm saying. They all were very fat. And I couldn't find any place to put my luggage, my computer. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, I realized they started taking out the tapes. They had taped the bales of clothing around themselves because the customs people were cheating them, so that they were overtaxing them. And all of a sudden, they were all nice and slim, and everything was fine. And then the hostess came to me and said, "What can I do to help you?" I said, "I'm just looking for a place to put my computer." And she turns to me and said, "How many times do you fly this plane?" I said, "It depends on where my work takes me." He said, "These women may look like illiterates to you, but they fly this plane twice a day to go and to come back. This plane belongs to them. So please make more room for the women, and we'll put your computer in the hole downstairs." Now, then I realized, as President of the African Union Commission said, that actually women run Africa. They run it. And so when I became president, I said, I can't think of anything more important than making sure that those women have access to finance at scale. And that's why, and it's under your vice presidency, it's under you, and that's what we're doing. And we're going to talk about that maybe in the next panel. The next thing I want to say that we are doing, it's in the area of agriculture. Agriculture, women account for 75% of farmers on the continent. But 1% of land belongs to them. Rwanda is an example. It's making Ethiopia, also Ghana and other countries, and Kenya are making good examples on that. 5% of extension goes to them, 10% of finance. It's not smart. I had a PhD student in 1992 who did his PhD thesis under me. And I remember he did a study in northern Nigeria to go and look at the impact of soybeans on women. Soybean was grown at that time by women, so men didn't care about it. But once it became a cash crop, the men went for it. And I remember the thesis very well. He found, the woman said, she was making so much money from soybeans. She said, look, the clothing that I'm wearing is from soybean. My kids go to school from soybeans. They are well fed from soybean. The house that you see, I built with the iron roof on it from soybeans. He said, soybean is my husband. What else does one need in a husband? So that tells you the power of when you get land in the hands of women, it can transform things. That's why at the African Development Bank, we are doing quite a lot on agriculture. We're spending $25 billion over 10 years and making sure all we do in agriculture is directed towards empowering these women. The third and final one I want to say is about fashion, fashionomics. You know, you saw the Minister of Gender of Rwanda elegantly walk down as she came. You know, African fashion is fantastic. And globally, it's a $5 trillion market in 10 years. In Africa alone, $31 billion. But it's done lately by women. And so we want to make sure at the bank we have something called fashionomics, which is to make sure that we are supporting these women that are doing the tissue, the couture, and all these things. And it's very, very important for us to continue to do that because you are going to impact a lot. Here in Rwanda, the government of Rwanda has a great program. So I think you call it, is it Pink Orange or something that you have on textile. It's a company with Chinese company that is working here doing textile. Rwanda has that. Ethiopia, Prime Minister Desalegn, I think you had on your special zone that you are also doing textile, footwear, and all of those things. Now, these are very, very important things that we must really continue because fashion is a big thing. African fashion is on global scale, and women are the ones who run it. So we want to make sure at the bank that we provide them access to skills, to knowledge, to finance, to be able to be competitive globally on this. The last thing I want to say is about the issue of a program that you actually launched, which I like, is called 50 Million Women Speak. you know, you can have, what do you call it, women, they're not so well organized. So access to information, access to mentoring, access to markets, access to finance and all these things. So what we've decided to do is working with the regional economic communities. We set up this 50 million women speak. So the women are connected, they are networked, with each other. And that will make sure that, individually, they may not be strong. When you got 50 million women that are talking to each other, exchanging ideas, creating markets, creating opportunities, and lobbying for change, I think you will see a big change. So that's some of the things that we are doing. And as I said in my remarks, I think the best investment we can make as a bank is to invest in women.
Thank you very much. And I'm quite excited to say that actually the 50 million African Women Speak is being launched right here. And it will be going live while we're here. So keep your eyes open. And also we're going to be doing a lot on fashionomics and AFAWA and everything. So very excited. And I think, Polo, that's a beautiful segue to what you've been working on. You've launched the Alethea Fund, of which we were one of the anchor investors, probably the main anchor investor. And we've been delighted to follow what you've been doing. But I think just in general, you can talk about Alethea if you'd like, but also in general, your experience as a woman working in the financial sector, which is very male-dominated and can be quite challenging. So it would be really wonderful to have an experience or have an explanation, a discussion point a little bit about how you address these things, and also for the heads of state and government ministers to hear a little bit about what life is really like on the ground.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state. Please allow me to say all protocol observed. In my country, we say that when we are lazy to, to read out the whole list of important people. My name is Polo Ledega. I am the second half of a fund called Alethea Fund that was anchored by the African Development Bank. We're very thankful, Dr. Adeshina, for the catalytic role that the bank has played, played right at the beginning, but importantly, the supportive role that your team has really played, and I will tell you a little bit more about it. So in terms of my journey, I used to work for the South African government. I was actually responsible for the policy that many may know as the broad-based Black economic empowerment. So I drove that whole process of seeking to transform the racial makeup of South Africa's economy. You know our history. I will not bore you with the details. So we had to be clearly very deliberate in ensuring that there's transformation racially, but importantly, and I suppose because the policy formulation work was led by a woman, we also made sure that women were at the center of that policy. I'm giving you that background because I think it is important to acknowledge the importance of political will and leadership when it comes to issues of transformation. You have to be very deliberate about it. You have to create, your regulatory environment and framework that enables, you to achieve the objectives of transformation, I think, broadly. So when I finished that body of work with the government of South Africa, I had already identified an opportunity in the market that the legislation was actually opening up opportunities for entrepreneurs broadly, Black entrepreneurs broadly, but women in particular. We often talk about how sophisticated the financial services system is in South Africa, but the reality is that it's actually not responsive to your typical African or Black South African. So for me, there was an opportunity to actually establish a business at the time to facilitate access to capital for Black entrepreneurs and women in particular. This is in 2008. So on the one hand, I had the benefit of a legislative environment that was supportive to what we were trying to do. But I think on the other hand, I was faced with a very hostile sector that is male-dominated, that is white-dominated, that is not used to engaging with a woman, that does not understand this opportunity that she sees, that requires to be educated and be convinced. So that is the typical experience, I think, of many women entrepreneurs, where you walk into a room, people don't really think that you've got a really commercially viable opportunity to talk about. I have found that the market, for instance, assumes that women run micro businesses that are slow-growing businesses. And I think President Adesina has just given you an example of how women are actually running the world. Girls rule the world. That is the reality. And so convincing your traditional investors, your traditional LPs, that there are decent-sized and high-growth businesses that are run by women at the time in South Africa, and of course later on when the African Development Bank invited us to have a conversation about broadening finance to women across the continent. We also found that having that conversation with international investors now going beyond Africa. I mean, Tokumbo and I spent about 3 months in Seattle in 2016. Just to give you an idea, we started this conversation in 2014. The FDB convened a meeting in Nairobi in 2014. I remember the exact date, 28 April 2014. And it took us 5.5 years to convince the rest of the world that women as an asset class are worth investing in. We had to change the language that we spoke about. I mean, when we started, we used to say we wanted to raise a fund that invests in women-owned and led businesses. And, your investor base would say, also, are you impact investors? And we said, well, if you want to call us that, that's what we will answer to that too. And over time, we found that we needed to change the language so that we could make our male counterparts on the other side of the table be comfortable with what it is that we were saying. We had to develop what we now call a gender lens investing tool, which we were hoping to launch fairly soon, which also tries to put in a language that, again, the world is used to for them to understand exactly what it is the value proposition is that we're trying to put on the table. So I'm just demonstrating to you how much education, how much advocacy has also had to go into us convincing the world that investing in women actually makes commercial sense, despite the fact that many studies have actually proven that there's alpha. In fact, there's even better alpha in investing in women than when you just invest in men-owned businesses. But it also I found that it's very useful to have a sponsor. Dr. Kagame, you spoke about the issue of including women, not just being a women issue, but actually being a male problem. We found that having sponsors, again in the form of the AFDB, where they would literally go to meetings with us. So Tukumbe and I would be the girls, and then there would be a guy from the AFDB. And for some reason, that somehow brought us some currency that we didn't have when we walked into the room on our own. So although it is not ideal, but I think to the extent that you've got men in power, in positions of power and influence, who can actually stand up with us and for us and help us to tell the story and open the doors. For me, I think we should never shy away from that. It's not a sign of weakness on our part. I think it's just a sign of where the world is and the fact that we need to walk this path together until we change the mindsets that we spoke about. So mine as an entrepreneur has been that kind of journey and we've been able to open a lot of doors, I think with a lot of support. But I think what I've also found, and I think it is important for every entrepreneur, whether male or female, to know is I have found that when you're authentic, when you are a subject matter expert in whatever it is that you're selling as a product, or if you're very clear about the problem statement or the problem that you are trying to solve, and you're also very clear about how you're going to solve that problem, you very quickly break down the barriers that you face, because we continue to face barriers. But I think when you're authentic and you sound like you know what you're talking about, people are willing to take the chance and are willing to actually back you and invest in you. So the AIF for me is a continuation of this journey. I'm very excited because one of the most significant things that it now allows us to do is to actually bring to life this inter-regional trade agreement that we've signed as most of the continent, because we keep talking about the need for inter-regional trade, but we hardly ever see anything happening on the ground. So Tukumbe and I are very clear that the one thing that we're going to pursue very, very aggressively is the opportunity to make linkages or find linkages between businesses within the SADC region and businesses within the West African region. So very thankful for that opportunity.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning the Africa Investment Forum, which indeed is all about changing the way that we look at things from sort of an aid mindset to an investment mindset, which is the way we know we need to go. Now, I'm mindful of the fact that we don't have much more time, but this is such an excellent panel. I would love to still get at least one last thought from each of you, even briefly. And just segueing from what we just heard from Polo, Madam President, I would love to turn to you again and just ask you, what advice would you have for young women in the room who are thinking about pursuing leadership, which might seem very daunting, but what advice would you have for them if this is something that they are interested in?
Okay, thank you very much. My first point would be to let them know that there is no Africa we want, there is no progress on this continent if they are not included. Now is the time, they have to seize it. This is the call that I will like to make. I would like also to tell them that they have to believe in them, they have to believe in what they can do. There is a lot of mystification. We have to go outside those. The path to leadership is about learning, is about growing. The path to leadership is also paved with many mistakes. You tumble, you fall, but you rise, you learn, you apologize, but you move on. We cannot stop. Let me tell you, as women, we put the threshold very high, and we want to be 100% perfect. We have to face the risk. We can't. And others didn't get 100% as well. So we have to be really ready for those challenges. We need to be focused. We have to know really what we really want. But it's also very important, beyond believing in our capabilities, by the way, young women nowadays have more capacities than the current one that they have. Let me tell you what has happened to me, my own experience. I have worked in my national capacity as well as 1 decade with high positions in the multilateral system. So whenever I was proposed a post, the first reaction was, who, me? Like, would I be able to do it? We have to take that away. You can do it. I have asked those questions, but I managed. I think I have. So we have to go beyond that. There is no restricted area for women nowadays. We can work anywhere in what could contribute to the society. But above all, really women will have to contribute to the fact that we have now, it's the time to move from rhetorics to action, from words to deeds. It's not only in big rooms, conference halls. We have to go to the grassroots. That's where things happen. We have to have that humility as well, to see all along the ladder and bring them up. We talked about fashion. I mean, this weekend I went to visit some amazing Ethiopian designers. We were in an incubator. It's amazing the potential that we have and what we can take from our own assets. I mean, there is so much collective wisdom on this continent that women can bring forward. So the time is yours. Don't waste it. I think we will have to work, all of us, together. But let me conclude by saying women working together, it's a formidable force to be reckoned with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now that is extremely powerful, and I will just repeat that for the young women in the room. Dare to be not perfect, because that's what it takes when you're moving forward. Mr. Chairperson, Your Excellency, just turning to you very briefly to get a sense from you how you think that working together between the African Union Commission and the African Development Bank, we can really move the needle on improving gender equality.
Je voudrais rappeler que la Banque africaine de développement est chargée de la mobilisation des investissements pour la mise en œuvre de l'agenda 2063. Et à ce titre, donc, cette initiative AFAWA est la bienvenue. Nous avons lancé nous-mêmes, au niveau de la Commission moi-même, une initiative appelé 1 million d'ici 2021 à travers l'éducation, l'emploi, l'entrepreneuriat et l'engagement, au moins et essentiellement des jeunes filles, leur donner la possibilité de se promouvoir. Nous avons actuellement dans les statistiques à peu près 40% des femmes au sein de l'administration de l'Union africaine. Les chefs d'État ont décidé que l'on doit arriver à une égalité de 50-50 en 2025. Pour l'instant, la Commission elle-même est paritaire et donc il faut que l'ensemble du personnel au niveau de la Commission également atteigne l'objectif qui est de 50-50%. Nous sommes à la fin de la décennie de la femme, 2010-2020. Et personnellement, je suis en train de plaider, je vais continuer à plaider au niveau du leadership africain pour que la décennie 2021-2031 soit celle de la décennie de la mobilisation financière, de l'intégration financière de la femme. Je crois qu'avec ces éléments, nous pouvons conforter les acquis et pouvoir sincèrement, en fait, c'est normaliser une situation qui était par nature anormale. Merci.
Thank you. And we will work together, and we will do great things. Of that, I'm convinced. And actually, my teams were just with your teams recently, and we have great plans. So, Polo, turning to you, and we've heard from the President of Ethiopia some of her sort of words of wisdom to the women in the audience who are thinking about leadership. Turning to you and your experience in the private sector, what would be your words of wisdom to young women who really want to break into this area and make a difference, particularly in whether it's finance or business? What would you tell them?
I think very much in line with some of the words of the President of Ethiopia, you need to start. I think entrepreneurs and women in particular tend to want to spend too much time trying to perfect, and you never get around to starting. And I always say that the market is the best giver of feedback. So when you start, the market will immediately tell you whether you're onto something good or whether you should change it as quickly as possible. And I think the earlier you can pivot your business idea, the better it is for you, because you don't waste too much time and you don't lose too much money in the process.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, turning to you again, Mr. President, boss. You've talked a lot about how a bird needs to fly with two wings. You've mentioned it again today. We've heard from some of the very impressive women on the panel what the recommendation would be for women who want to take up positions. What would you tell men that they need to do in order to make this happen?
Thanks, Jennifer. I think the first thing is, I think men have to realize that the current problem was not created by women. We created the problems. So we have a greater responsibility, as President Kagame was saying, to make sure that men in positions of leadership help to readdress long-term injustices and inequalities that have actually been perpetrated down for so long. And so when you take a look for me, I think the importance of mentorship, the importance of support, and importance of promoting women, it's very, very important. Now, in trying to do that, like in the, I remember, in the U.S. elections, the last time, Hillary Clinton was talking about the issue of the glass ceiling. I think the glass ceiling is an easy thing, in the sense that you can still see from there, because it's glass. In the case of Africa, it's not a glass ceiling. It's a concrete cement. You can't... So it requires a bulldozer to bulldoze right through that. And so I think that the example we have, excellent example. President Kagame is an excellent example of that. He just explained to you what he had to do. Right? I think he's too modest for his achievement. That's just because of who he is. Right? I think you should give him a clap, because And I think that this is what it takes, leadership that redresses long-time injustices and inequalities. The other thing I want to say is President of the African Union Commission said it, and also the Minister of Gender from Rwanda mentioned it. It's the issue that we have to do everything to end gender-based violence, rape, gender harassment, and all these things that go on. It's not because we don't have it on the law books. We have them. But the police have to do their jobs. The courts have to do their jobs. There has to be high penalties for these things that, as you said, abnormal things that we are trying to normalize in some situations. I also think that for girls, we have to make the homes safe. We have to make the schools safe. We have to make the streets safe, yes, the work environment safe, so that they can actually thrive in those environments. And I just give one thing about our programmatic intervention. Just a small thing like providing safe toilets in school. We invested in Malawi, Madam President. We had a project there with our partners. We put about $23 million just to provide toilets in school. And what we found, toilet and water and sanitation, was that girls were dropping out of school just because there are no safe toilets for them to use. And when it was time for their periods, they go in school, everybody making fun of them because there's nowhere to go. And it affects, as you were saying, their psyche, the confidence and everything. So we invested $23 million there. You know what we found, Mr. President, was that the enrollment in school went up by 29% for the girls, 29%. We also found that diseases in terms of water-borne diseases fell from 36% to 5% just from that. So I think that these are very practical things that we must do to own that. But I will end with one thing, that we are here talking about the imbalance, men, women largely. But I perceive that unless we change something, we'll be here in another 15, 20 years talking about how to change another imbalance for boys. You go to schools today, universities, and you look at their graduation. First-class honors, when they ask them to come, they're all girls. You should clap for that. That's good. I went to a university in Nigeria. I was there for the graduation ceremony. And they say first-class honors about 7 times. All the people that came were all ladies. Then we were all feeling all the best prizes, about 15 of them were taken by ladies. So we were all sitting there, really bemoaning, just find us one boy, one guy. It's not. So finally one guy gets up, and the whole place went up, and we were all excited. And the guy came in, they asked him to get the prize and then go over and say thank you. And he said, well, it is actually was won by my girl, but she fell ill, so that's why I'm here. So I think that we need to really make sure that we don't enter this. Our girls have a lot to teach our boys so that, we don't come back in 50 years and we find that it's the reverse. So I think a lot will also learn from the excellent performance of our girls and ladies in school. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And Your Excellency, President Kagame, I would love to give you the last word. What can you leave us with today?
Well, I will say there is a lot of learning to do, and there's a lot to learn from, so let's keep learning all together. Second, we must do things that we can do, and we know that will bring the change. Therefore, learn, do, change, and measure, so that we are able to tell where we have come from and where we are at the present, and where we could be going forward in the future. And just the last thought is that, like today, we are having this gender summit or the number of days for activism for that. I think we must give a good and real meaning to the activism. Activism is not just making noise and yes, and being excited. And I think activism is also about management of the expectation, proper management of what is doable, and identify relevant things we ought to do, and get more organized and really be deliberate and do the things that are even within our means to do, because there is a lot that is within our means to do that we don't do. So I think this is what I can finally say.
Excellent. Thank you. So, learn, do, change, and measure. I think those are wonderful words to leave us all with. Over the next 3 days, this is what we will be doing. And I'm sure that at the end of the 3 days, we will be very excited with what we have mapped out for the road ahead. So please, we have a round of applause for this amazing panel. Thank you so much to everyone. And I believe that now we will be moving on to the next segment. Should we get off? Okay, we'll be told very soon what we're meant to be doing.
Thank you, VP Jennifer Blanque. It's an honor to be telling the man what to do. So I would like at this point to respectfully ask our principals to regain their front seats. And again, let's thank them while they make their way down to their seats. As we transition into the second part of our program, it is time now to welcome a young and talented performer from Côte d'Ivoire. Her name is Amina Bamba, and she will be accompanied by Roland Bousseau, who I'm told is a Cora Fola. You know, I'm a BBC, not the Broadcasting Corporation, but born before computers. So I don't know what this new terminology means, but I think he has a wonderful Cora. So welcome Roland on stage for your performance with Amina. She will be sharing a poem named Adam and Eve. So we'll just let publicists set up for the next session, which is called Unlocking Access to Finance for Women. There you are, Roland, and the floor is yours. Amina, if you can get ready to join Roland on stage.
President of the Republic of Rwanda, Excellency, President of the Republic of Ethiopia, Excellency, President of the African Development Bank, Excellency, First Lady, Excellency, Representative of Government and States, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you in advance for listening to me. Il y a une expression fondée sur on ne sait quels critères qui s'est transformée en courant de pensée et qui a fait le tour de la Terre, qui s'est imposée avec un succès planétaire, mais que désormais nous les concernés avons décidé de faire taire. Unfortunately, in some places of our countries, some people still think that women are weak. Far from the intention to make propaganda, I'm not a white activist. I'm not trying to play the polemicist, but my condition assigns me the task to make a change in the name of women's worth. Va-t-elle été considérée parce que la plus sensible ou parce que l'égalité dans la différence semble pour certains encore inadmissible? On a pensé seulement qu'à la robustesse comme le seul unique critère de distinction entre force et faiblesse. But if Eve was weak because created from one of the ribs of Adam, nature itself would have never allowed men and women to live side by side. If Eve was weak, the Almighty will have never judged necessary to send her as a help. Eve is no longer waiting for Adam to come from harvest or hunting, because Eve have learned how to make nets and catfish. I'm just saying that women have power. Eve a compris qu'elle pouvait être aussi être une source de pouvoir. Eve a compris qu'elle pouvait aider Adam à construire un toit. C'est pour ça qu'elle est devenue amazone, savante, professeure, chancelière, souveraine, députée, ministre, présidente, reine. Human beings are both weak and strong. Men and women are both weak and strong. Human is just a coin. And men and women are only the sides, the faces. So we don't need to fight against each other or to fight over who gets the first place. Because this world just needs to be carried by the hand of Adam and the belly of Eve. Because this world just to be carried by the hand of Adam and the shoulder of Eve. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Amina and Roland, for a very powerful and moving performance. I think we all pedal back into history with those notes from Bob Marley. Indeed, this is a wonderful opening ceremony. I mean, a wonderful opening ceremony. Now we're transitioning to the next panel, titled "Unlocking Access to Finance for Women," and I will call upon the speakers to take their seats here on stage, starting with Dr. Akiwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, Honorable Salimata Diop Dieng, Minister of Women, Family and Gender, Senegal, Mr. Kennedy Uzoka, General Managing Director of United Bank for Africa, Ms. Josephine Anan Ankoma, Group Executive Commercial Banking, EcoBank Group, Mr. Andrew Temu, Chairman of the Board, African Guarantee Fund, and my sister, she's Rwandan, but I believe she was born in Senegal, Christine Guerrier, founder of Entrepreneurium. I will also call the moderator, Acha Leke, to join the panelists. And at this point, I will take leave. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve as a moderator for this opening ceremony. Now over to you, Acha. Thank you and goodbye.
Oh, there we go. Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you. After this inspiring panel this morning, we thought we'll start to get into the nuts and bolts of things. As we know, financing in particular is one of the biggest constraints to gender parity across Africa. Actually, at McKinsey, we have a measure called the Gender Parity Score, GPS, where we measure gender parity at work and in society across 15 different indicators. Africa's GPS today stands at 0.58. Gender parity of 1 would mean full gender parity. We stand at 0.58, so we have a long way to go. On financial inclusion in particular, our GPS is 0.65. The world average is 0.74, and we are the second lowest ranked region in the world, right? So a lot to be done. And so that brings us here today to chat with the panel about what are really concrete, specific solutions we can do to close that gap. And to get started, actually, I'll start with you all the way at the end, Christine. As a woman entrepreneur on the panel, would love to hear from you before we get into solutions, because we really want to focus this panel primarily on solutions. But before we get into that, it will be good to understand some of the challenges. So what are some of the challenges you face as a woman entrepreneur and some of the women you work with have faced in actually raising financing for their businesses?
Thank you, Acha. Allow me to express myself in French. Je suis donc Christine Guerrier. Merci beaucoup pour l'opportunité que vous m'offrez de partager mon expérience. Bonjour, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour, Madame la Première Dame. Je suis très honorée de partager cette expérience ici. D'abord, la mienne, en tant que femme entrepreneur, elle commence en 1992. J'ai 18 ans à l'époque. Je suis à l'université depuis 1 an. Et j'ai eu une idée de projet parce qu'à l'époque, en Afrique, s'ouvrait le paysage audiovisuel. On se rappelle des années 90, on est à l'heure de l'analogique, on n'était pas encore au numérique, et on avait toutes ces chaînes de télévision étrangères qui venaient s'installer. Et je me disais que c'était intéressant de concevoir un magazine qui racontait un peu ces programmes, mais surtout l'histoire africaine. Et donc, je vais rencontrer différents banquiers, un premier, un deuxième, un troisième, et j'apprends tout d'un coup un nouveau vocabulaire, garantie, titre foncier. Et le dernier banquier me regarde gentiment et me dit « Vous avez 18 ans, j'ai envie de vous donner un conseil, vous êtes si jeune et si fille, trouvez-vous un gentil mari ?» Et là, je me dis donc qu'il y a peut-être une histoire qu'on devrait modifier. Et donc, je me rappelle d'être rentrée chez moi et j'ai une femme en face de moi à qui je raconte cette histoire. Cette femme, elle est veuve depuis quelques mois, elle a 6 enfants, elle est institutrice, elle gagne $400 par mois et elle me dit « Écoute, je vais me porter caution pour toi ». Et elle m'accompagne à la banque. Elle signe les documents donc de garantie, parce qu'il fallait une garantie. Et là, je vois un formidable acte d'amour et une profession de foi. Et cette femme est ma mère. Elle a 80 ans aujourd'hui. Et j'ai monté Entrepreneurium as a legacy for what she did at that time. Because I'm here because a woman 27 years ago made a decision to support me. So along the journey, so I'm grateful. I am privileged to have advising African governments. Excusez-moi, je switch en anglais. Donc j'ai conseillé des gouvernements africains tout au long de ma carrière. Et je m'étais promis, si le moment se présentait, si j'avais les ressources pour le faire, à mon tour d'aider des femmes entrepreneurs. Donc j'ai monté Entrepreneurium il y a 5 ans. Et notre mission est d'aider donc ces femmes entrepreneurs à monter leurs entreprises, mais surtout à les aider à grandir. Donc aujourd'hui, après 5 ans, nous avons impacté 3000 femmes qui ont créé 12 000 emplois. Nous avons financé 52 projets. Et j'ai envie de dire que j'ai pu le faire parce qu'une femme, un jour, a pris une décision. Et donc, ce que je voudrais dire, c'est que ce que nous rencontrons avec ces femmes, c'est exactement l'expérience que j'ai vécue, l'accès au financement, mais surtout, ce qu'on entend, c'est que c'est moins les besoins qui existent de financement que l'assistance technique et tout le business supporte derrière. Donc, c'est ce qu'on essaie de faire dans la mission d'Entrepreneurium.
Et est-ce que les choses ont changé sur ces 23 années, d'après votre
Après
expérience?
27 ans, ça n'a pas beaucoup changé. J'ai juste envie de dire qu'elles sont juste un peu plus chanceuses que j'ai pu l'être à l'époque, d'avoir extrêmement de possibilités disponibles sur le continent. Et je crois que la plateforme que la Banque africaine de développement offre aujourd'hui, c'est justement de leur faire comprendre, parce qu'elles sont là, ces femmes, ce qui est possible pour elles et ce qui est disponible. Mais ça n'a pas changé.
Ça n'a pas changé, wow. All right, so Kennedy, you've heard from Christine. She says, over the last 27 years, not much has changed in terms of access to finance for women. As the head of one of the leading banks across Africa, would love to understand what UBA is doing to hopefully change that.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, and all the distinguished members of this panel and the crowd. Thank you for the opportunity for us to be here. She's very right, and when I listened to Mr. Deshino, it was quite clear that we have a huge challenge. And let's look at it in a more broader scale. Access to finance is not just something that is a problem for women. It's a major problem for everybody, but it is worse for women because of man inhibitions, primordial issues that we've had, and so many things that we've done to disadvantage women. For instance, when you talk about commercial banking, in most jurisdictions, you are required to lend with collateral. We've heard here that women don't even have assets. So, right from the beginning, it is extremely difficult for a commercial bank to go into this area. But we believe that the environment is changing based on so many of the actions governments are taking. And we also believe in UBA that we have to go beyond the traditional banking model to be able to address this huge gap. Because if we do not address it, no one will address it for us. We have come out with gender-friendly products across the 20 African countries that we're operating, using the data and the statistics we have seen. And as the president of, I think, Rwanda, no, the president of Somalia said, don't wait until you have that perfect solution. That is the difference between men and women. Even though it is difficult for everyone to access finance, but men tend to do better because they don't wait until the solution is perfect. They go into it. And I like that advice because you really can never see the future with certainty. You should go in, learn from your mistakes, make changes, and continue, and at some point, you will come out successful. So I believe that in UBA, the solutions we have developed, and also talking about Nigeria in particular, because we have realized that banks are not lending to this sector. The SMEs and microfinances have now made it mandatory and, in fact, incentivize lending in this area. So if you lend to this area, you get additional 50% points in terms of your loan funding ratio computation, which the Central Bank Governor of Nigeria is pursuing very seriously. In addition to that, there have been other interventions in the creative industry, in IT, and giving people a lot more de-risked platform to operate. And that is why today I think the narrative is changing quite rapidly. UBA will be signing an LOI with AFD that will deploy a lot of resources across the 20 African countries that we're operating, because we know these people, we know this location, we know the challenges they faced, and with this solution that we have designed, it's not going to cure everything, but I think it's going to be a major step. And talking about women in general, we are aware that without having women, because you don't give what you don't have, if you don't have women in position of power, everything that will be discussed in the rooms will be about men. And we are addressing it in UBA as a global institution that operates not just in 20 African countries, but operates in the United States and UK and, of course, France. So we have certain regulations. Our board today at the group level is about 14%. And if you look at it globally, it's 40%. And our workforce, we have over 65% women. So somehow women are coming in, and we're taking deliberate actions to encourage them to come in and begin to design products and talk to the menfolk that these are the things that are important for our womenfolk. So it's just a matter of time, all these things will begin to change. But at the end of the day, the advice which I'm taking away is that don't wait until you have a perfect solution, because it's not going to happen tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kennedy. And it's great to hear about how you're transforming UBA from within, right? Some of the work we've done has shown that companies that have more women on boards and or on the management team just perform better, right? That's been shown. In Africa, they perform up to 20% better. So we tell our clients, if you don't do it because it's the right thing to do, you should do it because it's the profitable thing to do, right? It looks like you guys are doing that. That's great. You talked about gender balanced, gender-friendly products. Can you talk about what is a gender-friendly product?
Okay, for instance, thank you very much. If you go by, like I noted, by the normal policies, regulation in most geographies, you are required to provide an asset if you want to access banking fund. So we have to do something different. Can we have a kind of crowdfunding? We heard that when women come together, they achieve better. And can we use some on-lending structures like what we're doing with ADB that will de-risk that sector so that the requirement in terms of the cost of risk will be bearable? But let me also say this, since you have raised it. Over 70% of women are not in the financial system. So when we talk about women not having access to finance, we tend to think that it's just for people in the urban centers. What happens to those outside? And we tend also to make this mistake that financial inclusion is just to have access to a phone and make a call. Our view in UBA, that is nothing. When we talk about financial inclusion, we're talking about being able to save money and gain your own financial independence, and being able to access capital, be it from a commercial bank or any venture capital fund. If you are not in the financial system, you cannot access any form of fund, because you have to bring yourself, your data into the financial system for the bank or the fund to assess your capability. And one of the things we're doing, working very closely with our chairman, Mr. Tony Elumelu, the founder of Tony Elumelu Foundation, because we also have noticed that, yes, access to funds is important. But we have seen people who have accessed funds and they failed. So we have also prioritized mentorship, training, occasional interventions to make sure that people really understand what they're into. And that's the major reason why it is difficult to access funds at that level, because most of the ideas is in somebody's head, and we cannot see what is in your head except you demonstrate it. So, but with the likes of Tony Elumelu Foundation, they are able to create this awareness and develop people to be able to present bankable proposal. But I must also say that that would not deal with all the issues. What we're seeing today is largely from the standpoint of entrepreneurship, coming from philanthropy, it will not do everything that is expected. How do we take it beyond there? How do we create proper sovereign venture capitalist funds where people can come and experiment? In some parts of the world, it's encouraged. If you come with an idea and you fail, you don't go to jail as long as you did not steal. You are given the opportunity to try again. But across our continent, if you do a try, bring an idea and it fails, you are blacklisted. So there's no opportunity for you to come back. All the things you learned in that failure is lost. And others are discouraged from getting in. So since we have some presidents here, we would like that to be looked into so that we begin to encourage people to fail. There are some institutions that you can't do certain C-level projects if you have not failed. Yeah. Because failure is also a great experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Absolutely. So it's not just financing. It's beyond it. Totally agree. Josephine, let's come to you. I mean, this is a $42 billion problem, right? As we've seen, as the AFDB has shown us. We've heard what the UBA is doing about it. As the most Pan-African of all African banks, right? You guys are present in 33 countries, I believe. Tell us a bit about what EcoBank is doing to help us address this problem.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be here and to be part of this panel. At EcoBank, we are looking at supporting women internally and also looking at women from the customer perspective. I believe that before we have this African adage that says that before you go out to clean somebody's house, make sure that your own house is clean. And we are making sure that we are cleaning house internally at EcoBank. In line with that, we have signed up to the AU's gender parity principle of 50-50 and are working towards ensuring that we have 50% of our workforce as women. Currently, we are at 46%, and out of that, 30% of those women are in senior management positions. And I am happy and humbled to say that I'm one of those success stories within EcoBank, having risen up from national service at EcoBank all the way to one of the highest positions in the bank of being a group executive running a business. So we are walking the talk, and we are promoting diversity and inclusion internally in EcoBank. When we look at access to finance for women, it brings to mind, for me, one of the critical things that makes it difficult for us as banks to bank women is because women are typically lack education and are unable to translate the beautiful ideas that we have onto paper to make those ideas bankable. And it brings to mind a story about my mother. She grew up as one of two siblings. She had a brother. And when it was time for them to go to secondary school, and unfortunately her mother had passed, and so it was her daddy, a single parent, taking care of the two. And he told them that he didn't have the opportunity and didn't have the wherewithal to take both of them to school, and so they had to make a choice. And obviously back then, the choice fell on her brother. He ended up going to school while my mother sold oranges to support income to make sure that the brother completed school. And this is a story that resonates across. And continually, women have been discriminated against this way with access to education, with health, and that has impacted on the way we bank them. So if a woman comes to us, for example, as my colleague banker had said, the first thing we would ask for is for collateral. But we know that it is difficult for that woman to produce collateral. Why are we not thinking of solutions that lend to women against the cash flow that they are lending? And why do we not consider that the woman who is selling leather bags in the Alaba market in Nigeria, for example, does not have a constant daily sale? You know, today the sale is up depending on which time of the day it is and which month it is, maybe towards Christmas festivities, and sometimes it is low. So as banks, we need to innovate and lend to women against the cash flows that they bring in. And we must be prepared to structure their facilities such that it doesn't have a fixed tenor. Because if I'm able to pay to you a high repayment installment when my sale proceeds are high and give you low, it means that you cannot fix me within a tenor and say, repay this loan within 6 months. As banks, we should be able to think of new things where we're saying, okay, for this loan that I'm giving to this woman, it's for this amount, and you can repay it within a period of 6 to 9 months, and you can pay between 10 to 15 on a monthly basis based on what your income is. Another thing that women want is access and convenience. The woman who is sitting at the Kaneshi market, for example, selling tomatoes in Accra, she's a wife, she's a mother, she's a businesswoman, she's a grandmother, for example. She does not have the time to go to the bank. And my colleague here spoke about going to the bank at the first time and being bombarded with all of these paperwork, collateral, bring this, bring that. We put them off immediately. At EcoBank, what we have tried to do is to reach out to that segment using our digital platform. So today, in collaboration with MTN and Jomo, we have launched the EcoBank Express Loan. What that does is that, so far as you are a mobile phone user and you have a mobile wallet and you have been actively using this mobile wallet over a period of 3 months, you are pre-scored. If you need any amount between $5 and $200, you just dial your short code, go onto your mobile money wallet, and request for an EcoBank Express loan. And instantly, so far as you've been pre-scored, that amount is disbursed into your mobile wallet, and you are able to bingo, go ahead and use it. So we have cut out the going to the bank. At EcoBank, we are focused on moving banking away from brick and mortar into clicks. We believe that digital is the way to go. So this is one of the solutions that we have brought to bear. And we launched this project only this year in May in Ghana with seed capital of $25 million. And so far, we have disbursed $100 million, turning that loan around. And we have been able to hit the highest number of borrowers, close to 1 million. We are at 850,000 subscribers and counting. So it shows the power of collaboration, you know, and how we are able to use our digital platforms to reach out to serve the needs of women. I spoke earlier on about cash flow lending. Women can't come to us to borrow with collateral because the odds are against them. And I think we've spoken a lot about that this morning. What we have done using the EcoBank Merchant Cash Advance Account is that we give you a digital solution, which is called the EcoBank Pay. It's just a scan and pay. It's either you use that or use a point of sale terminal. And we say that when a customer comes to you to buy, instead of accepting cash, encourage that customer to use the digital platform to pay. We will look at the digital collections that you have done over a period of 3 months, and we will lend 50% of that amount to you collateral-free at a soft interest rate. You know, so these are some of the interventions that we are bringing to bear to ensure that we're able to address the needs of women where they are and where it matters most. And that is why we are very much excited about what we are going to do with AFAWA, you know, in terms of providing technical assistance, providing risk sharing to make sure that we're able to grow women businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow. A lot of innovation and leveraging technology, which we know is absolutely critical to closing the gap. What I actually liked as well from our 2 private sector leaders is the fact that they are tracking how women are doing within the organization. As President Kagame reminded us, we need to measure. And I love the fact that, you know, we know EcoBank talked about 46% of women at entry levels. We found in our research that women account for 47% of entry levels, 40% of middle management, 20% of senior management, and only 5% of CEOs. So there's a lot of leakage. So I'll just encourage you guys to also track the leakage across, figure out what programs you need to put in place to stem that leakage. Andrew, let's come to you when it comes to the African Guarantee Fund. I don't know if many people here know what the fund does, so it'd be good maybe for you to explain to us a bit what AGF stands for and what it does, and in particular, what role it's playing in helping close the gap, like we heard from UBA and from EcoBank.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Your Excellencies, all distinguished participants to the summit, I'm also very pleased to be here. I'm also very pleased to represent AGF, who's working very close with the Africa Development Bank. I think even the person who decided to organize how we should sit in front here places me exactly where I'm supposed to be, between the strugglers of accessing finance and those who are providing. Africa Guarantee Fund is a Pan-Africa financial institution, actually. It is structured and modeled in a way that on the basis of the fact that financial institutions are having challenges to extending loans and other financial products to the SMEs in the continent. But in being positioned there, we did not think about only solving the problems of the financial institutions. There is a significant eye of AGF which looks at the ultimate beneficiaries on how they would be able to intermediate with the financial institutions. We have a blend of products, and I wish to explain them a little bit such that they can also explain how they fit in with how we are going to team up to make sure that FAWA is a success. The bulk of the products are guarantee funds, and we have 3 of them. One of it is a portfolio guarantee, whereby the lending institution has the liberty to populate that portfolio with ultimate beneficiaries who currently we are emphasizing SME more, and we guarantee it in totality. The second one is an individual loan guarantee, where the ultimate beneficiary is a single entity, SME, which is borrowing from a financial institution, and we also guarantee it up to the tunes of 50%. And that one is basically trying to address the issue that financial institutions were perceiving SMEs and also those which are women-led as risky and probably non-fundable, etc. And in doing that, we just don't only offer guarantee, but we dialogue intensively with the financial institutions and identify the exact challenges which they have been facing, particularly targeting SMEs. And we built in a capacity development kind of a portfolio within our business. We have worked with many financial institutions. Currently, we are working with 150 PFIs, we call partner financial institutions, EcoBank being one of them. And we really dig deep into what are you doing right now? Why do you find that lending to the portfolio which you're having right now is a comfort zone? And what is it that do you think you would need to be able to extend your loans to SMEs? So the struggles and the effort which Madam Josephine has been explaining become the food for AGF. We sit together, even the cash flow based kind of lending, reverse factoring, trying to perfect non-traditional collaterals like immovable assets because many banks, when you go, you'd find immovable assets are the easy ones to accept as collateral. So exploration of all that, we do it jointly. Many times we have done it with a very clear eye and also working relationship with the ultimate beneficiaries who are SMEs. We don't want to be fixing something on the part of the partner financial institution while really we are not addressing a particular need which is very clearly understood on the SME. But we have gone even beyond that one in the financial product. We also provide bank fundraising guarantee. And this, we guarantee bonds issued by banks in order for them to raise finances. At the beginning, we realized you could push financial institutions to include small, micro, and even women. We also have the youth buzzword within our mission. But it was not only the fact that they have perceived risk. Sometimes it's an issue of liquidity. So there are times when financial institutions also need to raise funds, and we guarantee those bonds which they issue. And it could be a bond, but also normal borrowing from even international banks so that they could enhance their liquidity. Lastly, I should say, in doing that and through really learning while you're doing, we have realized that you could have capital, you could have resources, etc. But there is an issue of the business enabling environment within the countries which we're working with. So AGF has been at the forefront to dialogue with governments, pursue advocacy of policies which would create a better working environment with for the financial institutions, but at times with also the SMEs. There are quite a number of them. And I tend to feel amongst messages which I would like to put across today is this element that it requires more than 2 to tango. It seems as if it is about 3 or 4. And one of the success factors of AGF today is the ability to operate in African countries and the willingness of the governments of African countries to listen, learn, understand, and walk the talk together. We are based in Nairobi, Kenya, and the government of Kenya has been very, very helpful. We are trying to make put a footprint in Africa. In Lome, Togo, we have accessed really the goodwill of the government. We have accessed a piece of land and even encouragement to put up our structure there. Last week, I was in the Southern Africa, and we are also looking for where to place our offices there so that we are closer to those financial institutions. We have operated for 7 years. We have been able to extend guarantees for particular lending to SMEs of the scale of $1 billion US. This has translated to $2 billion of loans from financial institutions to SME. We have on record that we have supported to the tune of 20,000 SMEs and created to the tune of above 120,000 jobs. So the tool, the innovation which we have put in place is working, and we really need to continue working very hard. It requires a little bit of tweaking. It requires probably a special vehicle within AGF to be able to work with our African Development Bank to contribute significantly to the AFAWA mission. Right now, our portfolio has to the tune of about 30% ultimate SMEs who are women, and we can easily grow through collaboration. Probably this should be my introductory note of what Africa Guarantee does and where we could go together. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, very inspiring when I hear what the banks, what AGF is doing. I get usually inspired. But then I contrast it to Christine's point where she said in 27 years, not much has changed. So I'm trying to figure out, what are we missing here? Christine, any thoughts?
Je suis très heureuse de ce que je viens d'entendre de monsieur de l'AGF. En réalité, les femmes que nous soutenons, nous venons de terminer un programme qui a soutenu 500 femmes à travers l'Afrique dans 13 pays. Et le problème qui se pose aujourd'hui, c'est le problème de la garantie. C'est un programme qui avait 3 composantes, une composante formation, une composante assistance technique et une composante accès au financement. Et les banques vers lesquelles nous sommes allés sur les différents pays nous ont dit très clairement les projets sont fantastiques, simplement ils ne sont pas suffisamment garantis, donc nous ne pouvons pas les financer. Donc je suis très heureuse d'entendre que visiblement sous peu nous aurons la possibilité pour toutes ces femmes, dont certaines sont ici, on a 50 femmes qui ont participé à ce programme qui sont ici aujourd'hui, qu'elles puissent enfin avoir accès au financement via une garantie qui a été mise en place par la Banque africaine de développement. Mais ceci pour dire qu'il y a 27 ans et encore très récemment, c'est encore le cas.
Mais on va y arriver. Madame la ministre, tournons-nous vers le Sénégal. D'après nos analyses, l'indice de parité GPS du Sénégal est d'environ 0,54. Côté inclusion financière, il est de 0,61. Donc j'aimerais un peu comprendre quel genre de politique, de programme est-ce que vous avez mis en place au Sénégal pour améliorer ou accélérer l'accès au financement pour les femmes.
Je vous remercie. Permettez-moi tout d'abord d'amener le message de son Excellence le Président Macky Sall qui nous demande de transmettre son message de félicitations et de remerciements à son frère et ami, Monsieur le Président de la République du Rwanda, Excellence Madame la Présidente de la Commission, Monsieur le Président de la Commission africaine, Excellence Madame la Présidente de l'Éthiopie, chère Première Dame. C'est un honneur pour nous et un grand plaisir de participer à ce panel qui est si important pour nos pays. Et je pense que si nous devons faire le bilan des avancées sur l'agenda de la femme dans nos pays, nous sommes satisfaits sur plusieurs points. Nous sommes satisfaits sur le positionnement des femmes par rapport à leur accès aux opportunités qui sont offertes pour se positionner dans les institutions, dans le milieu politique. Comme vous le savez, ici au Rwanda, beaucoup de femmes, nous avons 60% pourcentage de femmes qui sont à l'Assemblée. Au Sénégal, nous avons la parité dans l'Assemblée nationale, dans toutes les institutions. Mais le défi majeur qui reste, c'est le financement des femmes. Le financement des femmes, je pense, c'est un des leviers essentiels sur lequel nous devons appuyer pour dire que les femmes sont autonomes en Afrique. Et sur ce point, au Sénégal, nous avons plusieurs projets et programmes qui vont vers l'autonomisation économique de la femme. Mais il reste beaucoup de choses à faire et beaucoup de défis à relever, surtout pour les femmes qui sont à la base. Parce que quand vous voyez, pour créer des championnes sur l'entrepreneuriat des femmes, nous avons des femmes qui bénéficient des financements, mais ce sont des femmes leaders qui ont la chance d'aller à l'école, qui ont eu la chance de pouvoir suivre des formations pour aller vers cet entrepreneuriat. Mais la plupart des femmes, je dirais même 80% des femmes qui sont dans nos pays, ce sont des femmes qui sont analphabètes, qui n'ont pas eu la chance d'aller à l'école, mais qui ont besoin d'être soutenues financièrement pour pouvoir aller de l'avant vers les activités génératrices de revenus et créer des petites et moyennes entreprises. Et cela, je pense que c'est essentiel pour nos pays. Donc là, je suis vraiment rassurée et c'est un grand honneur pour moi de entendre les banquiers, surtout par rapport au projet de la banque EcoBank qui a des initiatives dans ce domaine, parce qu'il est important que les banques puissent soutenir ces idées, ces initiatives qui proviennent des femmes. Et ces initiatives sont des petites initiatives à la base, d'abord pour le périmètre maraîcher, pour la transformation des produits agricoles, des produits halieutiques, mais aussi, il y a aussi des femmes qui ont aussi beaucoup d'initiatives, les start-up dans le domaine de l'innovation, mais qui manquent de ressources. Et je pense que les banques, pour trouver des financements, ce n'est pas facile. Ce n'est pas facile parce que d'abord, on l'a dit tout à l'heure, il manque d'abord la garantie, il manque toute la procédure qu'il faut mettre en place pour pouvoir accéder à ces financements est très très compliquée. Et vraiment, je me réjouis d'entendre les banquiers dire qu'on va aller vers des guichets spécifiques qui vont permettre aux femmes de pouvoir accéder à ces financements. Ces financements sont vraiment des financements qui ne demandent pas beaucoup de ressources, mais c'est juste pour permettre aux femmes de pouvoir développer des petites initiatives localement, à la base, pour pouvoir y travailler, créer des ressources et même créer des emplois dans la localité où elles vivent. Donc je pense que les États sont en train de faire beaucoup d'avancées sur ces domaines. Au Sénégal, nous avons le Fonds national de crédit qui est disponible pour les femmes. Nous avons le Fonds de l'entrepreneuriat des femmes. Nous avons l'ADER aussi qui vient pour compléter sous cette panoplie de financement. L'ADER qui est destinée aux jeunes, aux femmes aussi qui ont des initiatives. Mais cela n'est pas suffisant. Nous avons besoin d'être accompagnés par le secteur privé, par les banques, pour que vraiment ces initiatives puissent être prises en charge. Et je pense que cela est important pour que les femmes soient positionnées dans le tissu économique de notre pays, puisqu'elles représentent plus de la moitié de la population. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Excellence. Vous avez bien parlé du rôle du secteur privé. J'aimerais aussi un peu comprendre, d'après vous, quel est le rôle du secteur public à travers nos pays en Afrique pour collaborer avec le secteur privé pour faire avancer les financements pour les femmes?
Oui, le secteur public, nous devons... D'abord, il y a un plaidoyer à faire au niveau du secteur privé. Parce que hier, j'étais à l'Assemblée nationale, quelqu'un disait que la responsabilité sociétale d'entreprise, c'est vrai, elle existe, mais elle n'est pas destinée totalement aux femmes qui sont à la base. Parce que si dans une localité où il y a une usine qui est là tout près, qui a une responsabilité de pouvoir faire du social pour aller vers la mise en place des périmètres maraîchers, tout cet argent, toutes ces ressources qui proviennent de cette responsabilité ne va pas directement aux femmes, mais c'est dans d'autres domaines que les sociétés investissent faire du social. Le social, ce n'est pas seulement le social pour donner à quelqu'un de l'argent, mais je pense qu'il faudrait qu'on essaie de réorienter en fait cette responsabilité d'entreprise vers les femmes qui veulent entreprendre, qui ont des initiatives et qui veulent travailler et générer des ressources et même générer des emplois. Je pense que le leadership des femmes ne vont jamais vers cette volonté de promouvoir la femme si la femme n'a pas une puissance économique qui lui permet de prendre en charge sa famille et ses enfants. Je pense que c'est très important. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Madame la Ministre. President, let's come to you. First, congratulations on AFAWA. I guess we can clap for President and the bank. I think hugely transformational for the continent. But as I was reflecting and talking to some friends, I said, in Africa, we're used to hearing these big announcements, $100, $200, $300 million, these big pronouncements, but not always, it doesn't always translate into action, right? So my question to you be, how do we make sure that AFAWA actually translates into action and that we see that the impact it would have with women across Africa?
Well, thanks very much, Acha. You know me very well, that I don't have a lot of time to waste. As President Kagame said, Just do it. It's just a question of doing it. Let me start from this whole question of, before I come to the issue of the amount, of why banks are not lending to women. First and foremost, let's take a look at the history of repayments by women and men on bank loans. When Wall Street fell apart, the global financial crisis, it was not created by women, it was created by men. When you take a look at microfinance institutions, commercial bank financing, 90% or more of women pay back on their loans. And so if you're a banker and you're looking at, I want to lend, you're looking at either your single obligor risk, and you take a look at all the sample of the women that you are borrowing, you find that they pay back. And so the issue, as far as I'm concerned, it's not an issue of risk of women not paying back their loans. No, that's not the issue. The issue we are trying to de-risk, actually, is the bias of bankers against women. That's what we are trying to de-risk. Take, for example, the thing that's called tontines. Bon, vous avez les choses tontines chez vous. Ce sont les choses sur lesquelles les femmes, ils sont ensemble, ils mettent l'argent ensemble, ils font des choses en crédit, des trucs comme ça là, et ça marche. Ils remboursent ça 100%, sans aucun problème. Mais pourquoi pas on ne peut pas avoir une notation des institutions traditionnels africains qui n'ont pas conventionnel, de donner des notations pour dire, voilà, vous avez payé le crédit l'année passée, avant ça, avant 10 ans, vous avez tout payé. So you rate them. You give them a rating because they pay back their loans. And therefore, you can therefore go to banks, and I think I exactly agree with what Josephine was saying, you know, non-collateralized based lending, which is based on social capital and repayment history. We don't have that in conventional banking. We just have a very rigid way of doing things. So in my way, I think we need to go back and look at many of the women's groups that have received loans over the time they've paid back, and we give them, take them from informality to formality. You rate them, you rank them, it's visible for banks to see. So that's on that front. Now, let's speak the other issue of what a risk facility will do. Archer and I, when I was vice president at Agra, I was totally disturbed by the fact that banks, you were given all this your rates. The banks were not lending to agriculture. And I used to ask the question, why? They would tell me, risk. I said, but forget risk. The question is never risk. The question is how you manage your risk, manage, lower your risk, and increase your upside returns. That's it. You get on a plane, they ask you to what are you going to drink? You say wine. And they say enjoy your movies, and you're enjoying your movie. You're flying 35,000 feet above sea level. That's the biggest risk of your life you're taking. But that's because somebody's managing the risk. That's why you're able to do that. So it's not about risk, it's about how you manage risk. And at that time, you worked with me from McKinsey, and we set up the facility, which was $350 million facility, to de-risk lending by banks to agriculture sector. In Nigeria, for example. Sanusi Lamido, who was the emir of Kano, and I got together, and you were with us in that conversation. I was pummeling on you on this thing. We got all the chief risk officers into the room, 20 of them. Asked them, why aren't you lending to agriculture? And give me the probability of loss if you lend to agriculture. Goes from 80% to 100%. So we said, okay, if we put in place a guarantee facility that gives a forced loss to cover a lot of your risk, and we fix the value chains into which you are lending, what will be the probability of loss? And if somebody walked up and got up and said, no, I think it's going to be 10%. And all the chief risk officers said, no, 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 it can't be 10%. It can't be more than 5%. And we ran that program. I was minister for 4 years. We leveraged over $3 billion from commercial banks into the same sector they were not going to lend to. We increased the share of total bank lending portfolio of banks in Nigeria going to agriculture sector from 0.7% to 5% of global portfolio in 4 years. Non-performing loans, less than 1%. So you can see that the issue is not so much the real risk, it's so much the perceived risk. And as I say, in the case of women, it's not even a risk. We are de-risking the bankers' biases against women. And so what the bank is doing, the African Development Bank is doing here is, I think it's time for change. I think it's time for delivery. I also think it's time for accountability of all financial systems on this continent to women. We are putting down, we mobilize well over now $411 million that will go into a guarantee facility. That guarantee facility will de-risk, it's going to be with the Africa Guarantee Fund. And so they will sign, I'm glad that you're all here today, they will sign agreements, lending agreements with all the banks and many others across the country. You have 40 countries and 140 financial institutions. Once they sign that, we will provide guarantee for them against any losses up to 75% of the losses that are incurred by the financial institutions. So you've got to have a skin in the game, so you carry 25% of that. But here is the deal. We got to leverage you 10 times. If I'm putting $1 down, I want to leverage you 10 times. Because you have to put your balance sheet at risk also in lending towards women. And so what I want to say is that we are going to hold all the financial institutions on this continent forever more accountable, and here's how. Apart from this facility, we're setting up what's called Women Financing Index for Africa. It's a rating index. It's going to rate and rank all financial institutions on this continent based on volume of lending to women, on the terms of lending to women, and on the impacts that they are having, their responsiveness to women. Why is that important for us? Africa's Development Bank, I want to thank President Kagame, I want to thank all our presidents, my dear brother Musa Faki, President, my dear sister Sally, and everyone, for the general capital increase of the bank. The bank's capital has gone up from $93 billion to $208 billion. But that money, we have to make sure it works for women. And what we are going to do is, after ranking, rating all financial institutions, we'll publish that. And then when institutions come to us looking for lines of credit, looking for trade finance, we will basically be asking the question, what have you done of women, for women lending of late? And so there has to be a tilting, Archer, of the entire financial ecosystem towards women, and there has to be a very deliberate effort for accountability for that. And so all these guys, our partners that we are working with, we're going to be, I can tell you transparently, this is not going to be an easy ride. This is something, I do something in Rwanda, President Kagame will call me the next day and say, Akin, how is it working? I do that in Ethiopia, President Sali will call me, how is it working? President Macron, when we launched this initiative in Paris, he said, bon, President de la Barre, nous avons tout fait. President Macron was fantastic. He helped us to raise over $251 million. Mais il m'avait dit, Président Macron, on avait déjà lancé cette initiative, mais maintenant les résultats, mais je veux vous mettre sur la pression. Ce que je voulais dire, c'est qu'on partage les choses avec vous, avec le garantie, mais je vais vous mettre sur la pression aussi. Merci.
Everybody will be put under pressure. We unfortunately need to close, but I have to come back to you, Christine, because all of this is, again, to help you and your women you work with to access more financing and help transform our continent. We started saying, 27 years ago, not much has changed over this. How do you feel after having heard this conversation?
Je vais rebondir sur ce que le président Adesina vient de dire. Il y aurait effectivement la pression sur AGF. Moi, je serais satisfaite quand les 3000 femmes qu'on accompagne viendront nous voir en nous disant « nous avons enfin nos garanties et nos financements ». C'est la seule manière pour nous de rendre les choses, d'exécuter. Et c'est vrai que tout ce qui se dit ici est très beau à entendre, mais pour moi, execution is power. So let's execute.
It's all about execution. Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking our panel, and then we'll have a session now with the First Lady, so please don't leave, but join me in thanking the panel right now. Thank you very much. All right, we need to move straight into our next session. We're running late, as you can see. As you know, this morning we spoke primarily about finance, but there are many more issues that women face on the continent in terms of achieving gender parity. And in this session, we want to then start focusing and addressing many of these issues. As I mentioned, Africa's GPS stand at 0.58. The bad news is that in 2015, the first time we actually did the analysis, Africa's GPS stood at 0.58 as well. And so we've really stalled over the last 4 years, right? And so the question is, what are we going to do to really accelerate that and really make a difference? We have the highest country on the continent is at 0.76. The lowest country on the continent is at 0.45, right? And we estimate that if every country just achieves, does as well as its best performing neighbor, if every country does as well as its best performing neighbor in Africa, that will contribute over $300 billion to Africa's GDP by 2025. That's another 10%, right? So it's huge, huge, huge contribution. So to get us started, I would like first to invite Her Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Rwanda, Ms. Jeannette Kagame, to share a few words of welcome with us. Your Excellency.
Thank you, Acha. My President, Excellency, the President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, my dear sister, Excellency Margaret Kenyatta, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Excellency Musa Faki Mahama, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission. I think the President of the FDB is out. So honorable, the panelists aren't there yet, distinguished guests and partners, Mesdames et Messieurs, good afternoon. As I begin, allow me to commend the African Development Bank and the government of Rwanda for their efforts and commitment to unpacking constraint to gender equality as a fail-proof strategy to achieve sustainable economic growth and true financial inclusion for a holistic social transformation. Growing up, I thought and actually believe that what a man can do, a woman can do. And I maintain that stand. As fate would have it, the irony of our dark history suddenly threw our women into a multitude of roles, as they had to be the mothers, husbands, fathers, brothers, comforters, and guardians. We soon realized that if we were to build strong communities in this post-genocide era, we had to be intentional in our choices in order to realize a nation rooted in unity, dignity, and prosperity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, sustainable socioeconomic growth can only be achieved when everyone's full contribution to the market economy is given its rightful value, but also when access to health, education, profitable opportunities, and financial inclusion are no longer the privilege of a selected few. Realizing a demographic gender dividend, therefore, requires all of us to make the right investments toward closing persistent gender gaps and enabling women and girls to be the true masters of their destiny. A true understanding of how far we have come and how far we need to go requires a deeper analysis that goes beyond mere statistics. It requires us to take stock and inventories of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And to achieve this vision of the Rwanda we want, we needed to place one of our strengths, characterized by the resilience of our Rwandan women and girls at the forefront of our transformation. And through inclusive policies, legal and strategic frameworks, we set a strong stage for gender equality, offering women and girls opportunities to maximize their rights and contribute to the country's development alongside their male counterparts. Today, the number of women participating in political decision-making are 61%, employed in key sectors such as health, 53.9%, agriculture, 54.6%, as well as the increase in girls' enrollment in secondary, 53.2%, and tertiary, 52.7%, education, among others. This speaks volume of our determination to achieve our social and economic transformation goals. However, despite these efforts, weaknesses and threats portend, which hinder the process to closing gender gaps and therefore reaping the desired demographic gender dividend. Some of these inhibitors are: 1, harmful and outdated traditions and beliefs common in most of our countries continue to limit women and girls' perception of themselves as change makers and leaders in their fields and community. 2, the slow pace with which we teach men and boys to be reliable partners and holding them accountable. I like what the president of AFDB said, even the financial institutions are going to be accountable for their responsibility in ensuring gender equality, perpetuate unfair conditions for women and girls in society. My dear sister, distingués invités, un changement de mindset est donc essentiel pour combler les écarts existants et tout particulièrement pour mettre un terme au cercle vicieux de la pauvreté. Nous pouvons y arriver grâce à des politiques appropriées, comprenant des mécanismes d'accès aux services financiers pour les femmes. Si nous espérons avoir un retour sur investissement dans les femmes et les filles, nous devons promouvoir leur confiance en elles-mêmes et leur indépendance, mais aussi veiller à ce que plus jamais elles ne soient confrontées à des obstacles dans leur quête de leadership. Allow me here to share a few examples of gender-targeted programs we implement at my foundation in Buto, aligning with priorities set at the macro level, such as Rwanda's national strategy for transformation, the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, and the SDGs. Through our promotion of girls' education program, we award best performing girls across the country to promote outstanding academic performance among girls, while encouraging the community at large to invest and take pride in their education. Through the Celebrating Young Rwandan Achievers Awards, we recognize young Rwandans, including young women, who are leading and transforming their sectors and communities. And last but not least, through our mentorship program, we instill in young women and girls the need to live purposeful lives, and through their mentors, encourage them to think beyond the limits set by society, tradition, and religion to reach for their highest goals. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let us ensure that women on the continent are afforded the necessary tools and opportunities to dismantle the barriers standing in their way towards a more impactful life. It calls for each of us to play our role. To women and girls, we must organize and be each other's keeper. For the youth, you must be proactive in taking your lives in your own hands and calling out inequality wherever it is perceived. You have what it takes to thrive in this fast-changing world. And to partners and stakeholders, we must be innovative and relentless in our commitment to invest and level the field for all, especially women and girls. And to policymakers, you must be deliberate in placing women and girls at the heart of transformative strategies and decisions. Once again, thank you for the government of Rwanda and the African Development Bank for offering this multi-stakeholder platform to share best practices on gender equality progress. Ensemble, renouvelons notre engagement à ne pas étouffer la voix de cette femme qui nous demande qu'à prendre cette place qui lui revient de droit. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And now we understand why Rwanda scores 0.69 on our GPS score. So congratulations. At this point in time, let me also invite Her Excellency Margaret Kenyatta, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, for opening remarks. Your Excellency.
Issue of height. Your Excellencies, my sister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me begin by thanking our gracious hosts, His Excellency President Paul Kagame and Madame Jeanette Kagame, for the very warm welcome and hospitality extended to me and my delegation. It's a great pleasure to be visiting Rwanda once again, to be part of this very important 2019 Global Gender Summit. This conference is essential in strengthening Africa's resolve towards realizing gender equality as an aspiration to our own development and the global 2030 SDG agenda. I'm particularly delighted to be participating in the discussion on the importance of unlocking the potential of women and girls to realize Africa's demographic dividend. This is the spirit of Africa's vision towards accelerating its path to sustainable socio-economic development. Our collective commitment to leave no one behind is a chapter in our struggle towards achieving gender equality. Although this agenda expresses a conviction that women and girls should benefit equally from opportunities alongside men and boys, our efforts are slowed down and even jeopardized by cultural constraints and common challenges across the continent. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share some of the challenges we, as a country, Kenya, and in my work through my Beyond Zero initiative, have experienced in our aspiration towards gender equality and the investments we have made to accelerate progress on this front. Globally, women face common challenges in their ability to engage as equal citizens in development. These challenges include lack of access to credit, lack of influence due to low representation in decision-making positions, lack of control or ownership over productive land, and lack of financial control to make spending decisions on education and health, just to mention a few. To address this situation, Kenya developed a national demographic dividend roadmap that borrows its pillars from the African Union roadmap, as well as the aspirations of Kenya's Vision 2030. We envisage a country where every woman and girl enjoys gender equality, a country where all legal, social, and economic barriers are removed. The national policy for the elimination of obstetric fistula launched in 2018, and most recently, the national policy for the eradication of female genital mutilation by 2022, launched by the President of Kenya on November 8th, are a demonstration of Kenya's commitment to this effort. We have recognized interlinkages between education, empowerment, and health in the realization of gender equality. Education is the window to prosperity and empowerment. Girls who complete their basic education are 3 times less likely to experience early marriage and childbearing at an early age, to suffer reproductive health challenges, or to contract HIV/AIDS. We continue to enhance policies that advocate for the protection of our girls from early marriage in policies that will help retain the girl child in school. Economic empowerment allows women to participate in decision-making at household levels. Through the establishment of Women's Enterprise Fund, women today have access to capital that will support the startup for their businesses. Eliminating these financial bottlenecks have transformed families and communities. In addition, the government has established a unique program, the Access to Government Procurement Opportunities, AGPO, where 30% of all government procurement opportunities are set aside for women-owned enterprises, the youth, and persons with disabilities. In my own work, I have witnessed the entrepreneurial power of women through SACCOs and women groups, locally known as chamas or merry-go-rounds. I'm convinced that women would apply similar principles to influence equitable redistribution of resources to support health, education, and social welfare spending of a country. Through my advocacy work on maternal and child health, I've seen that access to basic health care, good nutrition, and wellness is critical to transforming the lives of our country's citizens. We know that women are pivotal in the healthcare workforce. We have seen the impact their work has given as caregivers. I have also seen how trained community health workers have played a critical role in filling the gap to alleviate health staff shortages. However, more attention is required to eliminate institutional barriers faced by female health workers. We must no longer accept less or no pay or occupy lower positions of the medical staff cadre. We must encourage and support incentives that attract more women into specialized healthcare positions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have committed to support initiatives that are critical in accelerating demographic change, central to removing structural barriers to ensure that the rights of women and girls are protected. At the ICPD 25 summit held in Nairobi a few weeks ago, I declared my commitment to championing the eradication of FGM by 2022, and today I reaffirm this commitment. It is my hope that we will achieve gender equality in our lifetime, and that we will realize the demographic dividend for the future of all our children. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And that is why Kenya has a score of 0.62 on our metric. We're now, yes, we can clap for that. We're now going to move straight into the panel discussion. So may I please invite Honorable Jamila El Moussali, Minister of Solidarity, Social Development, Equality and Family from Morocco, to join us, please. Honorable Elbak Adam Zainabou Tarimako Bako, Minister of the Promotion of Women and the Protection of Children from Niger. Dr. Kosana Moyo, the founder of Minds. Ms. Kiara Koraza, the Managing Director of the Women's Forum for the Economy and Society. And Ms. Ifeinwa Ugochukwu, CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, to join us. And last but not least, our moderator for the session, Ms. Diana Gitera, the Director General for Africa at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Rwanda. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. And as I hand over to Diana, I'll just encourage you, if you want to know where your country stands on our index, we're doing our launch tomorrow morning for breakfast. It should be in your calendar, so please show up for it, and we can discuss not just where the country stands, but more importantly, what needs to be done to achieve gender parity on the continent. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, First Ladies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, welcome to this panel session themed Realizing the Demographic Dividend through Investments in Gender Equality. Of course, the concept of demographic dividend is not new to you, but with an African continent set to reach a population of close to 2.5 billion by 2050, half of which will be under 25 years old, it has become an imperative for the continent to translate our demographic trends into a real asset. Most of us believe this is possible if we leverage existing resources efficiently and effectively. Demographic dividend is defined by UNFPA as the economic growth potential that can result from shifts in population's age structure, mainly when the share of the working age population is larger than the non-working age population. Africa's demographics is exactly that. Those with the potential to be productive and contribute to the growing economy are increasing in numbers. Yet the dividend from this growth, understand the benefits or returns, will only materialize if comprehensive and strategic investments are made to address different barriers, including, of course, gender inequality. At the international level, commitments have been made by the United Nations through SDGs. At the continental level, the same can be underscored with AFDB's role in supporting women's access to productive employment, with investment in education, skills, and job creation. At the national level, countries are developing gender empowerment policies with investments in girls' education, sexual and reproductive health, and gender-responsive budgets. However, despite this progress, the road forward is still long. Too many women and girls continue to have unmet needs in family planning, are marrying as children, are unable to complete their education, or to have equal access to employment. Investments and timing are key in these areas, and partnerships critical. Let's ensure that in this session, we share learning and discuss challenges, opportunities, and new approaches on gender equality, while understanding that with the right push, the demographic dividend can become a reality in Africa. Moving to today's discussion, allow me to introduce our distinguished panelists, which will share their knowledge and expertise with all of us for the next hour. I will start with Her Excellency Elbak Adam Zainabou Taribako, who is the Minister of the Promotion of Women and Protection of Children of Niger since October 2016. She has also occupied the functions of Deputy Minister of State of Foreign Affairs and advisor to the President of the Republic. Minister Taribako has also worked in the private sector. And then we have the CEO of the Tenyo Elumelu Foundation, Ms. Ifeyinwa Ugochukwu. She has been CEO since April 2010, but she is also the former Director of Partnerships and Evaluations at the Foundation and has over 2 decades of corporate experience. Moving on to Dr. Kosana Moyo. He is the founder and executive chairman of the Mandela Institute for Development Studies, MINDS, a forum for dialogue, information, and research on Africa. He is also a former Minister of Industry and International Trade of Zimbabwe, and Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the African Development Bank. Next, we have Her Excellency Jamila El Moussali, who is the Minister of Solidarity, Women, Family, and Social Development of Morocco. She has occupied many governmental positions, including as Minister of State to the Minister of Tourism, Air, Transport, Craft, and Social Economy, Minister Delegate to the Minister of Higher Education, and Minister of Higher Education. She's the President of the Women's Organization of the Justice and Development Party. And last, but certainly not least, we have Ms. Chiara Corazza, who is the Managing Director of the Women's Forum for the Economy and Society, which is a leading platform to build bridges between generations, countries, and cultures. She was the Managing Director of the Greater Paris Investment Agency from 2002 to 2016, and she's on the Board of Administration of several companies and institutions. And now moving on to the discussion that we will have today. Pour débuter cette conversation avec vous, Madame la Ministre Zainabou Taribako du Niger, en 2017, l'Union africaine a adopté le thème annuel suivant, exploiter le dividende démographique en investissant dans la jeunesse. Et le but étant d'accélérer la mise en œuvre d'initiatives visant la réalisation du dividende démographique en Afrique et de développer la feuille de route avec des objectifs et des étapes clés servant de ligne directrice à tous les États membres. Madame la Ministre, comment passer des engagements continentaux à la mise en œuvre de la feuille de route, des feuilles de route nationales respectives sur le dividende démographique?
Merci Madame la modératrice. Je voudrais, avant de vous répondre, me réjouir d'être ici au nom du président de la République, chef de l'État, M. Issoufou Mahamadou, empêché, et remercier les autorités rwandaises et la BAD pour l'organisation de cet important événement. Donc, si nous revenons par rapport aux engagements continentaux, nous disons que le Niger s'aligne à tous les engagements, surtout l'engagement de l'Union africaine où beaucoup de de choses, beaucoup d'engagements sont acquis pour nous et nous disons que pour l'atteinte du dividende démographique, il faut actionner, n'est-ce pas, sur les jeunes, il faut aussi actionner même sur les adultes. Et par rapport à l'éducation, nous disons que l'État du Niger a adopté un décret portant soutien, protection et accompagnement de la jeune fille à l'école. Par rapport au mariage d'enfants, là aussi l'Union africaine a instruit tous les États à porter, n'est-ce pas, cette thématique, et c'est pourquoi le Niger lutte beaucoup contre le mariage d'enfants. Maintenant, par rapport aux autres secteurs comme la planification familiale, parce que là c'est la santé, le Niger a toute une planification à travers le projet Suède. Et là, quand je reviens au projet Suède, aujourd'hui c'est un projet qui nous permet d'asseoir toutes les stratégies pour actionner sur les jeunes. Là, nous avons des initiatives telles que l'initiative adolescente illimite, où nous recrutons, n'est-ce pas, dans un espace, des filles déscolarisées et non scolarisées, et mariées ou non mariées, qui sont dans la tranche d'âge de 10 à 19 ans. Et là, elles reçoivent tous les enseignements jusqu'à la planification familiale. Et là, c'est pour retarder les mariages d'enfants et retarder aussi les grossesses précoces. Donc, voilà ce que je peux dire par rapport à ça. Et par rapport à l'éducation, c'est tout un chantier. Ce décret est en train d'être vulgarisé, mais je pense que ce que nous pouvons souhaiter, c'est la mise à l'échelle, sinon c'est de supporter ces genres de programmes pour l'atteinte du dividende démographique. Parce que pour atteindre le dividende démographique, il faut actionner à la base, il faut actionner sur la jeunesse. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Madame la Ministre. So, Dr. Moyo, building on what the Minister has just mentioned in terms of the specificities of what Niger is doing regarding young girls and women, if we move to a continental perspective, from a country perspective to a continental one, it is widely accepted now that to satisfy the necessary conditions of demographic dividend investments, as was just mentioned with the Minister, investments in human capital, health, education and training are vital for developing a skilled and healthy labor force. A translation, please. I think they will probably take care of it very quickly. Let me just continue for the sake of the discussion. I apologize, Minister. So as I was saying, investment in human capital, health, education, and training are vital for developing a skilled and healthy labor force. According to you, Dr. Moyo, what are some of the principal obstacles to the productive participation of African young people, particularly young girls and women, in the social, economic, and political life of their communities and countries?
Thank you very much. You will have to excuse me. I'm going to take a rather unusual and maybe unconventional approach. I want to address the ladies that are here in particular. And my starting point is that we listened all morning. All the obstacles that are there are known. They are known. They've been known for a long time. But what is also fascinating is that the appropriate responses are also known. We know what we need to do. And so the question we should be asking ourselves, I think, is why is the obvious not happening? And we're not asking this question. Why is the obvious not happening? If you look at it from a moral point of view, from a rights point of view, from a human resources point of view, what we need to do is clear. So why is it not happening? What I want to propose, what I want to suggest is that when you look at history and you look at every situation of conflict, every situation of contestation, there is not one example where the contestation or concessions have been given on the basis of conversations by the fireside. It has never happened. And we seem to be approaching this as if we can have a nice conversation and walk out of here and get it done. The evidence keeps telling us that it's not going to happen. So why do we keep trying to do the same thing when the evidence is telling us we are not likely to succeed? That's the question I would like us to try and answer. And my provocative suggestion is that ladies are being way too conciliatory. You are applying too much carrot and no stick, but the evidence tells you you're not going to succeed that way. So my view is that the female folk, you have to be a bit more rebellious. And you have to understand that for as long as, when you look at history, for as long as the power asymmetry is not addressed, you are not going to get concessions. So the question in terms of strategy for ladies is how are you going to create a better balance in a power situation where the other side begins to take you seriously and listens to what you have to say? If you don't achieve that, it will not happen. I mean, I would be quite happy to be proved wrong if somebody cares to point to me what history, what contradictions there are in history to what I'm saying. Please educate me. If I'm correct, then I think you have to accept that the approach we are taking is not going to deliver the results. And I think it's also sad for us. And by the way, let's understand, statistically, President Kagame has done it. The only other country on the African continent I have had experience of something like this happening is Tunisia. Bourguiba did it in Tunisia. But what it demonstrates is that there is an unbelievable commitment and political will that needs to drive this agenda. It's not a question of technical answers, instruments that we all know. They are all there, and the commercial incentives are all there, and it's still not happening. So, if you don't happen to be lucky to live in a country where the head of state has got incredible clarity and commitment to get it done, the only other solution is for women to rebel. Yeah? So, in one answer, in one word almost, one sentence maybe, the biggest obstacle is power asymmetry. And the only single answer you're going to have to come up with is how to address power asymmetry. Once you do that, this will sit around and will implement the solutions necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morio. Madame la ministre El Mostali, ministre du Maroc, ces 15 dernières années, le Royaume du Maroc a fait des progrès considérables en matière de développement, sur le plan économique, également sur la question des femmes. La question est la suivante. Pouvez-vous partager quelques-unes de vos pratiques exemplaires pour faire avancer l'égalité des genres et améliorer l'accès des femmes à toutes sortes de services sociaux, en particulier la santé et l'éducation? Et est-ce que les femmes se sont rebellées au Maroc pour avoir accès? Voilà.
Merci Madame la modératrice, Excellence, Mesdames les Premières Dames, Excellence, honorable assistance, Mesdames et Messieurs. Permettez-moi d'abord d'exprimer mon grand honneur de participer à ce forum et de présenter Sa Majesté le Roi qui m'a honoré de le présenter aux travaux de ce forum que nous considérons un forum abrité par la République de Rwanda, que nous considérons parmi un forum qui est d'une grande importance, celle relative à l'élimination de toute forme de contrainte à l'égalité entre les sexes, puisque l'égalité constitue l'entrée stratégique pour l'autonomisation de la femme et le renforcement de sa place dans tous les domaines, dans la vie politique, économique, culturelle et sociale. À cet effet, je tiens à saluer les réalisations de la femme africaine. Ces réalisations qui ont été soulevées dans le message royal adressé aux participants et participantes aux travaux du 2e sommet international du Women in Africa Initiative, premier sommet international d'appui socio-économique qui a été organisé au Maroc l'année dernière, où, à travers laquelle Sa Majesté le roi Mohamed VI a mis l'accent sur le fait que ce n'est pas un hasard. Et je partage avec vous cet extrait. Ce n'est pas un hasard, faut-il le rappeler, c'est les femmes africaines comptent à leur actif des succès et des réussites multiples. En effet, mieux instruites, plus actives et plus libres dans leur choix de vie, elles s'illustrent désormais par une présence plus dynamique dans les sphères politiques, économiques et sociales. Excellences, mesdames et messieurs, c'est avec un grand plaisir et une grande fierté aussi que nous participons à ce sommet riche de bonnes pratiques, riche d'expériences, et ça va nous permettre de renforcer et pérenniser aussi les politiques et les projets et initiatives de l'autonomisation de la femme dans tous les domaines. J'ai l'honneur de partager avec vous certaines réalisations importantes dans le domaine de l'autonomisation de la femme dans le Royaume du Maroc, exemplaire avec son modèle dans la réalisation d'un progrès progressif selon une démarche plaçant la personne, femme ou homme, au centre des priorités, pour l'instauration des piliers d'un développement juste et durable, capitalisant sur l'ensemble des processus de développement de notre pays sous l'égide de son roi Mohamed VI, que Dieu l'assiste. Les efforts déployés par le Maroc dans le domaine de l'autonomisation de la femme et les solutions innovantes adoptées sous la conduite éclairée de Sa Majesté et qui a inscrit la promotion des droits des femmes comme une des priorités des réformes institutionnelles au Maroc. Et ceci continue de s'affirmer dans plusieurs politiques. Par conséquent, des textes juridiques ont connu des réformes et des révisions structurelles dans l'objectif de renforcer l'égalité entre les sexes. Ceci dit, le bilan de réalisation atteint en matière de l'autonomisation des femmes montre l'ampleur des efforts déployés par le Royaume du Maroc pour honorer ses engagements et ses efforts pour continuer à capitaliser sur ces réalisations dans divers domaines, notamment des réformes législatives, institutionnelles, économiques et sociales, qui ont été couronnées par l'adoption en 2011 d'une nouvelle constitution qui stipule que l'homme et la femme jouissent à égalité des droits et libertés à caractère civil, politique, économique, social, culturel et environnemental. Il concrétise la priorité de la promotion des droits de la femme marocaine, quel que soit son lieu de résidence, la promotion de leur statut étant l'enjeu pour parvenir au développement global que nous espérons tous. Et les outils que nous avons, les options, ou bien les outils que nous avons choisis à travers l'adoption d'une nouvelle loi organique de la loi de finances en tant qu'outil pour des finances publiques juste à travers l'intégration du genre dans la programmation budgétaire. Cette loi oblige les départements gouvernementaux et les institutions nationales à définir leurs programmes suivant des objectifs précis et des indicateurs d'impact mesurant la performance. Aussi, la création de l'autorité pour la parité et la lutte contre toutes les formes de discrimination qui contribueraient à la réalisation des principes de l'équité entre les femmes et les hommes. Aussi l'adoption des plans d'action national en matière de démocratie et des droits de l'homme. Et je cite aussi l'adoption d'une politique, et je crois que c'est la plus importante, l'adoption d'une politique publique intégrée d'égalité en tant que cadre de convergence des différentes politiques nationales et programmes de développement dans le domaine de l'autonomisation des femmes et pour atteindre l'égalité et lutter contre toutes les formes de discrimination et de violence. Le Maroc a adopté pour la première fois en 2013 le plan gouvernemental pour l'égalité ECRAM 1 et qui a produit un bilan considérable incluant des réformes à caractère structuré et structurant tant au niveau législatif et institutionnel. Et aussi, on continue la mise en œuvre d'un deuxième plan gouvernemental pour l'égalité ECRAM 2, 2017-2021, selon une approche basée sur les droits de l'homme et la démocratie participative. Et je conclus que Conscient de l'importance de l'autonomisation des femmes en tant qu'entrée stratégique pour la promotion des droits des femmes et la consolidation des principes d'équité et d'égalité, l'autonomisation des femmes, économique des femmes a occupé une place majeure dans les deux versions des plans gouvernementaux pour l'égalité. Merci.
Merci, Madame la Ministre. Merci beaucoup. Moving on to Ms. Chiara Corazza, Managing Director of the Women's Forum. I will remind it, this talk is centered on constraints women face to access and also to control resources when it comes to economic opportunities. We saw some good examples that were mentioned by the Minister of Niger as well by the Minister of Morocco, and some nuanced views coming from Dr. Moyo, encouraging us, I should say us, to rebel a little bit.
Thank you so much. I'm really delighted to be here, but I switched in French, parce que je suis tellement heureuse d'entendre parler tellement français ici, et de voir comment tous les efforts que j'ai faits pendant des années avec plein d'autres pour promouvoir la francophonie sont restés solides ici, parce que dans ma longue carrière, je crois que je suis peut-être une des plus âgées ici, autour de la table, qui pas âgée, on dit mieux. Et j'étais pendant très longtemps en charge d'investir, de développer. Quand j'étais à la tête des affaires intéressantes de la région, j'ai beaucoup fait pour investir en Afrique. And guess what? Je m'appuyais toujours sur des femmes, mais de façon inconsciente. Et d'ailleurs, Madame la Présidente, Madame la First Lady, je suis très heureuse de vous dire que je m'étais beaucoup battue à l'époque, en 93, pour faire voter un budget extraordinaire pour aider la population du Rwanda après le génocide. Donc c'était quelque chose de généreux que la population de l'Île-de-France partageait avec vous. Et après, j'étais de l'autre côté, à tirer des investissements. Et alors maintenant, dans la troisième part de ma vie, je me suis dit, je veux investir sur ce qui est vraiment important, les femmes. I want to give back to the community. Et c'est pour ça que je choisis la plateforme du Women's Forum for Economic Society pour son influence, sa capacité d'avoir un impact. Ça a été créé il y a 15 ans et ça a été créé dans l'esprit de faire un Davos des femmes, de faire entendre la voix des femmes, pas simplement sur des questions de genre, mais sur toutes les thématiques qui nous intéressent. Et c'est pour ça qu'aujourd'hui, même si je sais que vous avez tous faim, je voudrais partager avec vous ce qui pour moi est la chose la Le vrai sujet, c'est qu'on ait les mêmes opportunités, les mêmes atouts, les mêmes expertises que les hommes pour être là où les choses se passent. Et où est-ce que se passent les choses maintenant? On est dans un monde en plein bouleversement, disrupted, comme on dit en bon français. On est un monde où 80% des emplois de demain, mais pas de demain, d'aujourd'hui, ne nous sont pas connus. Où sont les femmes? Est-ce que les femmes sont prêtes pour être là où elles peuvent transformer le monde, ou est-ce qu'on va être les éternelles victimes et qui attendons après de dire « Ah ben oui, mais on a refait un monde pour les hommes et par les hommes ». Donc c'est à nous maintenant d'avoir les outils. Et je vous donne quelques exemples qui moi me frappent beaucoup. Si vous voyez l'intelligence artificielle, nous travaillons beaucoup là-dessus. Nous avons créé un Daring Circle parce que ce matin, vous disiez il faut oser de trouver des solutions différentes, il faut oser d'avoir un impact, il faut oser faire, parce qu'on a assez parlé et on en a marre d'entendre toujours les mêmes choses, il faut maintenant qu'on agisse. Vous savez qu'il y a 82% d'hommes blancs derrière les algorithmes. Ces algorithmes qui nous gèrent la vie au quotidien, l'éducation, la santé, le climat, notre vie quotidienne, les lampes qui s'allument ou pas, 82% d'hommes très bien intentionnés, exceptionnellement qualifiés. Le résultat, c'est que actuellement, vous reconnaissez 99% des hommes quand vous passez à l'aéroport, les femmes 35%. Et les femmes noires, 23%. Il y a quand même un problème. On crée un monde dangereux. Et c'est un exemple parmi d'autres. Comment ça se fait que si on a un problème de santé, quand on va chez le médecin, une femme, une fois sur deux, n'a pas le diagnostic qui correspond à son malaise, parce que toute la médecine a été créée, pensée et imaginée pour soigner les hommes, alors que c'est les femmes qui font 80% des décisions, etc., etc., etc. Vous ne trouvez pas que ce serait mieux, puisque avec cette automatisation des emplois, c'est encore les femmes qui vont rester sur le carreau et ne pas accéder aux emplois qualifiés. Donc, que faire? Nous, on a mis en place une grosse opération, là. Je vous porte d'ailleurs les salutations très chaleureuses de la communauté du Women's Forum qui s'est réunie il y a juste la semaine dernière pendant 4 jours à Paris au Carrousel du Louvre. Nous étions près de 3000 pour voir justement comment take the lead for inclusion, faire un monde inclusif pour tout et take the lead. Alors on a lancé des initiatives très concrètes pour faire ce que tout à l'heure, les financiers le disaient, augmenter les nombres. Dans le monde entier, vous avez 25% de femmes seulement qui sont actives dans le monde du numérique, dans le monde de la technologie, dans le monde scientifique. Donc, comment voulez-vous, après, être les ingénieurs qui dessinent les lignes de futur? Comment voulez-vous être les ingénieurs qui font les algorithmes? Comment voulez-vous être les scientifiques qui inventent les vaccins s'il n'y en a que 25%? Donc, il faut augmenter le nombre. Et comment faire? Ici, en Afrique, vous avez une chance énorme. Nous avions avec nous 2 femmes exceptionnelles qui étaient la patronne de Google Afrique et la patronne de Facebook Afrique. 70% des filles chez eux. Parce que les nouvelles technologies, c'est une façon de s'en sortir, de gagner de l'argent, d'être indépendant, de pouvoir transformer le monde avec des outils nouveaux. Donc, la chose la plus importante pour moi, c'est vraiment que les filles, dès qu'elles ont 5 ans, puissent commencer à être dans les études scientifiques. Avant, il y avait les humanités et les sciences dures. Maintenant, les humanités, c'est les capacités technologiques et numériques pour pouvoir faire avancer les choses. Si on veut être un bon poète ou un bon artiste, il faut connaître les nouvelles technologies. Donc, donnons aux filles ce qu'il faut. Et nous avons lancé un programme, et je vous lance un appel qui peut être intéressant ici pour vous qui avez le pouvoir politique, un programme en France pour sensibiliser les parents sur toutes les opportunités que peuvent avoir les filles si elles choisissent une carrière scientifique, quand elles ont 5-6 ans. En Europe, seulement, il y a 900 000 emplois dans le digital. Aux États-Unis, 1,4 million. Je ne connais pas les chiffres en Afrique, mais j'imagine que c'est exponentiel. Deuxième étape, quand les filles ont 12-13 ans et qu'elles décident qu'est-ce qu'elles doivent faire, eh bien, faisons en sorte de rendre sexy, de rendre amusant les métiers, les coding, les métiers du futur, de leur donner une vie, parce que sinon elles ne vont pas venir. Et puis enfin, quand elles doivent accéder aux études, faisons en sorte que les fameux biais ne soient pas défavorables pour entrer dans les écoles, parce que ceux qui décident pensent encore avec un langage et une sélection faite par les hommes et pour les hommes. Nous avons lancé une opération qui me plaît beaucoup à Paris la semaine dernière, qui s'appelle les sœurs. J'ai vu que vous, entre vous, vous appelez beaucoup sœurs. Ce sens de sororité, ce sens de solidarité. On a lancé un projet qui est porté par des grands scientifiques, donc le Dianieri et d'autres, qui sont des sœurs qui s'engagent à aider des jeunes filles à comprendre les métiers scientifiques, à leur dire que c'est facile, que c'est possible, que bien sûr on peut échouer, mais qu'on peut aussi arriver, et que si tout le monde ne peut pas devenir astronaute, on peut tout de même avoir les clés pour préparer un monde meilleur pour nos enfants. Donc c'est des choses très concrètes et très intéressantes. Et puis il y a une autre chose que je voudrais dire, puisque j'ai entendu 3 fois rendre hommage à mon président de la République, Emmanuel Macron. Vous avez peut-être vu que le G7, qui était sur réduire les inégalités, quelles qu'elles soient, donc y compris des genres, bien entendu, a décidé de faire une loi sur l'émancipation économique des femmes. Et il a confié au Women's Forum et à moi personnellement le soin de fédérer toutes les énergies, de voir tout ce qui a été fait dans le monde entier pour pouvoir faire une loi qui soit exemplaire dans le G7, mais surtout qu'elle contribue à avoir un impact réel pour que les femmes puissent vraiment avoir accès non seulement au financement, mais à tous les outils qui leur permettent d'avoir un vrai empowerment. Parce qu'on a bien vu que quelquefois l'argent est là, mais qu'elles n'ont pas accès à l'argent quand même. Donc moi je voulais simplement lancer un appel de solidarité, de travailler ensemble. La communauté du Women's Forum est exceptionnelle. Il y a ce mélange de grands groupes, d'activistes, d'ONG, d'institutionnels, etc. Et ensemble, vraiment, je pense qu'on peut faire avancer les choses, chacun dans notre pays. Mais vous savez, les problèmes sont les mêmes partout. Dimanche encore et samedi, nous avions 50 000 femmes dans les rues à Paris, parce qu'il y a 130 féminicides à Paris. Moi, je l'ai découvert. Je pensais qu'on avait fini ça. Et au Mexique, dans notre forum Amérique, on a lancé une charte contre le trafic humain exponentiel. On a été voir tous les chefs des hôtels en disant « Vous ne fermez pas les yeux, vous vérifiez qui vient chez vous ». Donc, c'est des choses qui sont inadmissibles. Donc, quand on parle de accès aux ressources, c'est aussi accès aux mêmes opportunités. Parce que si on est discriminés parce qu'on ne peut pas étudier, parce qu'on ne peut pas être sécure, etc., etc. Et moi, je crois vraiment que les nouvelles technologies sont la façon de s'en sortir, d'avoir les mêmes opportunités et très vite. Donc, j'ai un discours très optimiste. Et puis, Madame la Première Dame, moi, je suis aussi très fière d'être là, mais aussi parce que je voudrais proposer au Rwanda d'accueillir le prochain Women's Forum Africa. On n'en a jamais fait. On en a un en Asie, on en a un en Amérique, on en a un pour tout le monde entier. Et on aimerait vraiment beaucoup l'année prochaine pouvoir faire un Women's Forum Africa ici, avec vous, et réunir toute cette magnifique communauté des femmes africaines qui sont certainement les plus puissantes de nous toutes. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Madame. Merci beaucoup, Madame Koratsa. C'est une transition tout trouvée avec Tony Elumelu Foundation. I was saying, CEO Oguchoku, that it was a great transition to you because Madame Koratsa has spoken about science and technology and access to finance as a driving force towards gender equality, and of course the expectation that it would result in this demographic dividend that we're talking about. So we know that the Tony Elumelu Foundation has championed private sector investments to unlock Africa's economic potential, but in particular through youth empowerment and entrepreneurship. Your foundation has also been at the forefront of many partnerships all over the continent and perhaps beyond. My question is the following. What learning can the foundation share with us today about innovations, collaboration, and public-private sector partnerships to accelerate progress on gender equality?
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today, and I want to thank the organizers, Africa Development Bank and the government of Rwanda. Permit me to stand on all other existing protocols. Women are responsible for 60% of the work done globally, but women earn 10% of income only, and they own only 1% of property. I think in this one sentence lies the very core of the problem. Nelson Mandela once says that if we are going to achieve freedom, we must emancipate women from all forms of oppression. But the greatest form of oppression is economic oppression. And economic oppression is indeed the gateway to all forms of oppression. As Dr. Moyo said, that women should have power or claim power. But how do you claim power if it's not given? We're not all fortunate to live in a country like Rwanda, where 63% of the women of people in parliament are women. That is remarkable, and I think it's the highest percentage in the world. So if we're not going to, if we as life givers will not take life, how do you get that power? The only way to do that is through economic empowerment. We all know that if you empower a woman, you improve the lives of those around her immeasurably, her family, her community, her country. And that is why in 2015, the Tony Elumelu Foundation made a commitment, a $100 million commitment to identify, train, mentor, and fund 10,000 African entrepreneurs across all 54 African countries over 10 years. From the very beginning, we knew that we had to prioritize women. So you can imagine our shock when in the first year, we received 20,000 applications from all 54 African countries, and we had only 29% female participation. We were mortified, and we began targeted campaigns to sensitize women across all regions of Africa, particularly regions where there are cultural and religious barriers to women taking part in commerce, North Africa and the like. And today, this year alone, in 2019, we received almost 300,000 applications to our program, and today we can say we stand at 41% female participation. But we're not satisfied. We're targeting 50% and beyond, because we know that when you empower a woman, you empower a nation. And we have seen remarkable impact from the 3,000 plus female entrepreneurs that we have empowered since 2015. For instance, we have here in Rwanda a lady called Marie-Claire Murekatete. I hope I didn't pronounce her name wrongly. Marie-Claire is the founder and managing director of Atlas Computers. It's an ICT company that revolutionized the transport sector in Kigali. by introducing and adopting e-ticketing, money transfer, and electronic courier services. But beyond that, and this is the power of women, Mary Claire founded a social enterprise called Refugee Girls Need You Now. And the major focus is to train refugee girls across Rwanda on ICT. So she trains them on coding, on programming, in collaboration with the UNHCR in regions like Kigali, Kiziba, and Kiembe. Each year, she trains 400 refugee girls. After these trainings, they then work on coding solutions and programming solutions to increase the standard of living of refugees across the communities. Mary Claire has received awards from SAP, appointing her Africa Codes Week Rwandan ambassador. She's received awards from UN Women and Mott MacDonald, awarding her as a Rwanda Gender Promotion Recognition for a role model for the next generation of women in Rwandan communities. This is one example out of many thousands that we have impacted. And so our question is, how can we scale this? Because we have developed a tried and tested model that with training, with mentoring, with funding, you can get women across Africa to create their ideas, impact their communities, generate revenue, and create jobs. We found that women across Africa are impacting their communities in leaps and bounds. And so, millions of Africans are at the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution, as my fellow panelist has said. Some of us, many of us missed the first three industrial revolutions, but we absolutely cannot afford to miss the fourth industrial revolution. And so our learning is that leveraging technology is the way to leapfrog Africa into the 21st century, to ensure that we cater to the burgeoning youth population. Africa's youth population today could either be the world's greatest opportunity or the world's greatest catastrophe. And we here in this room today can ensure that it is the world's greatest opportunity. By collaborating, by leveraging each other's strengths, let's stop reinventing the wheel. Let's stop working in silos. Let's leverage each other's strengths, governments, development finance institutions, private sector, and let us create sustainable solutions to the burgeoning youth population, to the women of Africa, because they have amazing ideas, they are talented, they are creative, and all they need is that intervention, is that hand up and not a handout, to translate their ideas from just sitting in their head as an idea into reality. And that is why we firmly believe at the Foundation that capacity building and funding are two sides of the same coin. World Bank recently did a study, Solutions for Youth Employment, where it found that many interventions, capacity building and training interventions, do not see the impact it needs to see because you're creating supply, but there's no demand. Where are the jobs? Where are the businesses? How do you practicalize this learning? And so we found that it must go hand in hand with funding. And the bottom of the pyramid is where we're playing. The bottom of the pyramid is where millions of young African women need our help, need our support. Because at that level, at startups, most banks are not really playing at that level. It's too risky for venture capitalists. And so we have to provide creative solutions through blended finance to ensure that the bottom of the pyramid has that opportunity to get their foot in the door and start their entrepreneurial journey to prove their concept. And that is what we're doing at the Tony and Miller Foundation. And that is why we're very happy with the launch of the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, because these are solutions that will create millions of young African women who will impact the continent, create jobs, and ensure that Africa takes her place, her rightful place, shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the world. And so, there's an old African proverb that says it takes a village, and we are that village. We need to work together. History will not judge us well if we do not act now. The opening video said it'll take us 200 years to bridge the inequality gap. But if we don't work together, it'll take us 1,000 years. So we have talked the talk, we are walking the walk, but we now need to run, because that is what we need to make an impact in women entrepreneurs on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO. Well, you know what happens here is that she has really done my job perfectly, because we are running out of time. I don't want to keep all of you waiting. So I needed a conclusion, and this was the perfect conclusion, the perfect takeaway. So let me just remind very quickly that collaboration has been mentioned as being a very key, partnerships, a comprehensive approach to all these issues of gender equality, empowering youth as well, access to finance, involving women in science and technology. Hopefully this is just the start of the conversation. It's the continuation, I think, of the conversation, and I hope you have enjoyed it. I wish you a very good lunch. Thank you.
mukomeje gukurikira televiziyo Rwanda ngira ngo rero umunsi wa mbere w'inama mpuzamahanga ku buringanire ukaba rero gicamunsi baganire ku ngingo nyinshi cyane, ingingo nyinshi zagaruka cyane mu kureba inzitizi zigere zikizitira abagore cyane cyane mu bijyanye n'imari ndetse mu bijyanye n'imyanya y'ubuyobozi. Bagaragaje imbogamizi nyinshi cyane, ariko nanone bakarebera hamwe ese ibisubizo bihari ni ibihe. Mu gutangiza rero ku mugaragaro iyi nama, umukuru w'igihugu cy'u Rwanda yibukije abayitabiriye ko mu mateka yo mu Rwanda mu gihe cy'ubukoloni wasanga n'ubundi umugore adafite ijambo ku mutungo ndetse no kuzungura ntago byashobokaga. Ati nanone gukura cyangwa se kugabanya ubusumbane ati ni inshingano za buri muntu wese ku isi. Ati kugeza kuri ubu ku mahame mpuzamahanga y'uburinganire nta gihugu na kimwe cyari cyabigereje na kwijana nk'uko biba byifuzwa, atari ko ni urugendo rurerure rusaba ingufu za buri wese kugira ngo yibura hagire igikorwa. Mu biganiro byagarutsweho uno munsi barebeye hamwe ikintu gishobora kuba gituma uno munsi usanga ari umubare ukiri hasi w'abagore mu nzego zifata ibyemezo muri Afurika, birumvikana, ariko banagaragaza nanone ko umubare munini w'abagore ari ugaragara cyane mu buhinzi. Bati agaragara mu buhinzi ntabwo ari ikibazo, ni byiza, ariko ikibazo nanone usanga nuko ari bwa buhinzi cyangwa se ya mirimo usanga itabafasha kubona amafaranga yo kwibeshaho. Bagaragaje ko abagore ati nibo babyeyi bacu, ati nibo bagore nabo bashiki bacu, atari ko mu gihe batateye imbere ntabwo igihugu gishobora gutera imbere cyangwa se umugabane muri rusange. Bagaragaje amafaranga menshi cyane umugabane wa Afurika uhomba bitewe nuko abagore batashyizwe mu myanya ifata ibyemezo, ariko cyane mu bigo bijyanye n'imari. Bati byose biramutse bikoyeho nk'imbogamizi, byose byatuma byibura umugore abasha gutera imbere. Bati ubusumbane aho bugaragara hose birumvikana burahari, atari kuzasanga n'ubundi biterwa n'abagabo. Ati abagabo umunsi twumvise tukamenya impamvu, tugasobanukirwa koko umugore akwiye cyangwa se ashoboye nawe nk'abandi bose, kuko umukuru w'igihugu cy'u Rwanda bigarutseho. Ati munsi abagore bari mu nzego zifata ibyemezo barashoboye, barabikora kandi barahigejeje. Ati ni ikimenyetso kigaragaza ko uramutse umuhaye byinshi kurushaho hari ikindi cyangwa se indi ntera ashobora gutera akava hamwe akagera ahandi. Ni byinshi byagarutsweho uno munsi, ko bagaragaza ko 40% uno munsi bya business zose muri Afurika zose zikorwa n'abagore, ariko imbogamizi iri niba umubare ugaragara ari banki zitandukanye, harimo nka banki nyafurika y'itsura amajyambere ndetse n'ibindi bigo mpuzamahanga by'imari bitera inkunga cyane cyane imishinga y'abagore niyo bigeze kuri 40% y'imishinga igaragara muri Afrika. Bati ni byiza no kwishimira umubare, ariko 2% by'iyo mishinga ni wakiri ikibazo gikomeye cyane kuko usanga batabona access cyangwa se batabasha kwegera ibigo by'imari kugira ngo babahe inguzanyo, ariko none bakagaragaza ko byibura 90% by'abagore bagerageje byibura ibigo by'imari bo babashije kwishyura neza inguzanyo byanije n'abagabo. Bati rero kuba bakibasha kubazitira bakibasha kubakandamiza batabemera kubaha inguzanyo ati ubwabyo ni ikibazo gikomeye, ariko nabo babashije kwegera ibigo by'imari byagaragaye ko abagore babasha kwishyura neza. Ni byinshi rero bizaganirwaho mu gihe cy'iminsi 3 hano mu nama mpuzamahanga ku buringanire ibaye bwa mbere ku mugabane wa Afrika, ibaye ku nshuro ya kane imyaka yose nta mwaka n'umwe yigeze ibera ku mugabane wa Afrika. U Rwanda rero rukaba rwatoranijwe nk'igihugu cyateye intambwe mu guteza imbere uburinganire ndetse no guteza imbere umugore muri rusange. Televiziyo Rwanda ikubereye ahangaha kugira ngo tuzakomeze gukurikirana ndetse twagezaho ibizava muri iyi nama. Ngire twanduruka reba.